Thank you very much. My name is Corey Autry. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'm also here tonight. I'm representing AT&T, and I'm here with Judy Woolen from AT&T's External Affairs Group, and also Franklin Orozco from AT&T's Network Development Vendor. So we're happy to be here tonight. And we've given a small cell presentation to council. We've obviously been before the zoning administrator a couple of times. And so we thought, since this is our first time before you, that we'd give a quick overview of small cell. Some of this maybe should have come before what Ben had presented, and thank you, Ben, for doing such a great job presenting the project. But I'll try and make this pretty painless and just buzz right through our general overview, and then we'll go into some specifics on the location that we're discussing tonight. Next slide. Since the onset of the smartphone in 2007, major changes in wireless use are driving the need to also make major changes to AT&T's network. Almost all Americans own a cell phone, with 77% owning a smartphone. 62% of Americans have done away with the traditional landline and now rely on wireless as their primary means of communication. We'll talk a little bit more about public safety in a future slide, but it's important to note that 80% of all 911 calls originate from cell phones. Most all small businesses, as you all I'm sure know, rely on wireless technology, and residents are using smartphones, tablets, and laptops at home, all driving the need for reliable and expanded connectivity, especially when there is no Wi-Fi connection in the home. Is that someone trying to talk to me?
No sound.
Can you hear me in the room, or?
Yes, we can hear you in the room, but Commissioner Ketting, can you raise your hand high and let us know you can hear us? That doesn't seem to be the case. Are our remote folks able to hear us? Do we have anyone else on, maybe on a phone call, that you can test? And are there any other, there wouldn't be any other Zoomers. Commissioner Ketting? Commissioner Ketting? Yeah, I still think we're somewhat out. If our commissioner, one of our commissioners can't hear, he can't participate. He probably thinks we're still on a break. Commissioner Ketting, can you hear us? Commissioner Ketting?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Mr. Pollock, can you hear us? You're on mute, but you're nodding your head, so I think we can hear you. Raise your arm, your hand, just to say, Mr. Pollock, can you hear us? Raise your hand. He still might be struggling if he's not. Mr. Pollock, can you hear us now? Okay.
I can hear you.
Great. All right. We'll proceed with the applicant, AT&T. Commissioner Ketting, just raise your hand and wave at us if you're having trouble hearing us.
I can hear everything.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's proceed.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. Is Ben there?
Yes, you can proceed.
Next slide.
Okay. The PowerPoint may be on a delay, Corey, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
So this is what...
Looks like COVID.
Yeah, this is what the demand looks like on AT&T's network. We've seen astronomical growth over the last 13 years with 580,000% increase in data usage. So obviously driving some needed changes to the network. Next slide. When it comes to improved wireless network coverage and capacity and public safety, small cells could help save lives. Better calls can be made, network congestion relieved during an emergency, and more information can be shared and accessed even faster. Some specific examples are downloading building floor plans and blueprints, enabling video-intensive applications such as a bomb squad robotic video, and providing real-time traffic information to determine faster routes to an emergency. Next slide. Due to the surging demand for data, AT&T's network density has to be upgraded. And there are 4 ways that we actually increase the density on a wireless network. One is to deploy more spectrum. We're quickly deploying all of our spectrum, and there is a limited supply available from the FCC. The second way is to improve spectrum efficiency. It's accomplished by repurposing existing spectrum, such as going from 3G spectrum to 4G LTE spectrum, but that can also max out network density. The third way is to build additional macro cell sites. It may be optimal for low density areas, but limited in options. And then number 4 would be deploying these small cells. And small cells can be deployed in a variety of locations to offload the surrounding macro sites. Not only do small cells help with the rise in demand for data, they also help to prepare AT&T's network for the future. And this slide just provides a quick overview of the differences between a traditional macro cell site and the new small cell. Macros can be large towers that range from 75 feet to hundreds of feet tall with a range of 1/2 mile to 20 miles, depending on topography and surrounding clutter. And small cells are much shorter and range from about 30 feet up to 60 feet maybe. And 4G small cells have a range of 250 feet to 1,000 feet. And the 4G is what we're discussing today. Next slide. Using existing infrastructure in the public rights-of-way is an ideal solution for small cell. It enables AT&T to densify the network where customers are prone to connectivity issues, heavily populated areas, and areas that can't effectively be served by a traditional macro site. So this looks similar to what you saw Ben present. It represents a small cell on a replacement light pole with the radios and antenna enclosed in the cylinder at the top. And the power and fiber would be brought to the pole from the underground. Small cells in the right-of-way also enables AT&T to bring the network closer to the user, lending to an overall better wireless experience. Small cells fully comply with the FCC's strict standards for RF exposure. FCC regulations were developed by expert scientists and engineers, and major health organizations and the FCC all state that wireless antennas operating in compliance with FCC regulations do not pose health concerns. AT&T takes our RF safety very seriously and ensures their safety programs keep them in compliance. So as Ben notified you, we actually entered into a master license agreement with the city in February of 2019, and that was AT&T's new singular wireless entity. AT&T Mobility is the manager of the new singular wireless PCS LLC. And there were a number of approved designs as part of the MLA, and tonight we're going to share one of those designs with you that pertains to this specific location that had the appeal. So I'm going to call Franklin up, and he's going to go over the location specifics, and then we're happy to answer any questions.
Franklin Orozco. I'm going to just run through this design for this particular facility. As Ben mentioned, the installation itself, it's in a very precise location because of the range that the small cells provide. So this first slide, basically, as you've seen before, is the before the installation of the small cell, and this represents what the small cell will provide for that area, and specifically, increase the network capacity to be able to handle the amount of traffic that you get during visitors in the existing community there. Next slide, please. Again, the location of the site is public right-of-way adjacent to a large landscape planter that has additional that is existing actually palm trees that will provide backdrop and soften the installation as well, the view to the public. Next slide, please. This is the photo simulation of the project. As you can see, been mentioned, the luminaire would remain at the same height, and the majority of the installation is on top of the pole with the antenna, the shroud with the radios, all internal to that shroud, as well as underground vaults that we will be providing. Next slide, please. In terms of the alternative analysis that we looked at, because again, the range of the small cells, we have looked at several different locations that are in the immediate vicinity of the project site. There are a combination of both utility poles as well as street lights in that area. For the utility poles, we found that those utility poles are subject to a future undergrounding. So those particular locations were not feasible in terms of the installation for the small cell. In addition to that, usually in utility poles, it is a little difficult to shroud as we are proposing with the current site. Next slide, please. As far as the street lights are concerned, what we found, most of these street lights have very limited space within the sidewalk right away, and so those were difficult to be able to utilize and still meet the ADA requirements. So we believe that the subject proposal, the subject location, is really the best location to be able to meet AT&T's network demands for this location. We're available for any questions that ends the presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll ask our commissioners to bring it back and ask any questions to the applicant. Does anyone have any? Commissioner Lowry.
Yeah, just a quick question, just really more technical in nature, but seeing the current infrastructure that you'd put on the light pole, and I understand this is for 4G, but it seems like all the future is 5G. Do you foresee that new 5G technology will fit within the kind of the current, or at least the housing that you envision on top of these light poles, or will that be something new and something you just do down the road?
Yes, so we are. This is 4G to support the 4G network. Future 5G it is going to require a modification of the shroud or add on to the existing location. We're working with the city at this point, but that has not been solidified or finalized yet for 5G. At this point, the focus is really to be able to resolve the network capacity for the 4G network.
All right, and Commissioner Ketting, any questions? Nope, doesn't appear that way. Okay, I will ask now the appellant to make a presentation. Is that correct, staff? Okay, great. Mr. Polk, you're up.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Ketting and members of the Commission. My name is Mark Pollock. I'm an environmental attorney. I represent a resident of Newport Beach. And I come before you with this appeal, not because I'm opposed to the technology or because my client is opposed to the technology. The basis of this appeal is that the applicants are playing a shell game with the issue of liability, coverage for insurance, and indemnity, leaving the city in a position where we believe it may be holding an empty bag in the event of a catastrophe which might reasonably be caused by one of these cell towers. It could be something as small as the unit falling on someone's automobile. It could be something as catastrophic as a wildfire. So if you'll bear with me, I think the staff included my appellate brief as part of its package. And I'd like each of the commissioners to be able to follow through the exhibits that I've attached to that brief. And I don't know what page of the staff report to reference. So if staff could just tell them which page to turn to, I'll begin that presentation.
Sure, we'll have staff answer that real quick.
It starts on handwritten page 45 is his appeal application. The appellate brief follows that.
Great,
Thank you so much. So on the face of the brief, I point out to the commissioners that Title 20.49.080 of the City Code requires that a telecom company that wants to place one of these units on public property in the public right-of-way must obtain first a master license agreement with the city and then obtain an MUP. So attached to my brief as Exhibit A, if you want to turn to it, it's after the last page of the brief, is the face sheet of the master license agreement entered into on February 12th, 2019. And you'll see that the entity that entered into this agreement is New Singular Wireless PCS, LLC. If you look at it, you can see on its face, there's no mention of an entity named AT&T. So New Singular Wireless PCS, LLC is the licensed entity. Under that master license agreement, New Singular Wireless LLC was obligated to obtain a policy of general liability insurance. That makes sense. In the event of a catastrophe like the ones I outlined, it would further insulate the city from liability if there was adequate insurance coverage by the licensee. However, when I went and looked through the city materials on the file, if you look at Exhibit D, the certificate of insurance checklist filed with the city of Newport Beach on this project lists the insured not as New Singular Wireless LLC, but as AT&T. AT&T is a brand name. It's not an entity. Let me see if I can explain this. So New Singular Wireless PCS LLC has registered itself with the Secretary of State. That registration can be found attached here as Exhibit B. If you look at that, on its face, it says New Singular Wireless PCS LLC. Now, if you drop down to item 5, where it says managers, the manager of that company is AT&T Mobility Corporation. That's not a DBA. That's an entity. It's a corporation out of Atlanta, Georgia. And that corporation is not registered to do business in the state of California. It's not registered with the Secretary of State. Accordingly, AT&T Mobility Corporation has no legal right to come before this body and request a permit because it doesn't have a master license agreement with the city. Only New Singular Wireless PCS LLC does. AT&T Mobility Corporation, its manager, cannot do business in California because it's not registered with the Secretary of State here. So it can't fill out applications, it can't pull permits, it can't execute contracts, it can't put up cell towers, it can't legally conduct business in California. So AT&T as a non-entity, in other words, as a DBA, is not registered with the County of Sacramento as required by law. So it's not a fictitious business name capable of operating legally in California. What I'm saying to you is that The insurance is issued in the name of a non-entity. The licensed entity is trying to do business as an entity that doesn't legally exist. The managing company for New Singular Wireless LLC has no legal authority to do business in California. Accordingly, we are asking you to reject the application as incorrectly submitted. The application is simply submitted under the name AT&T. I'm not suggesting that this should prejudice the company. What I am suggesting is that if AT&T wants to come back and have a permit issued to it, then AT&T needs to enter a master licensing agreement under its actual corporate name. There are, as I count, 12 corporations and 18 LLCs that use the name AT&T, registered with California. There is one corporation and 8 LLCs that use the name AT&T Mobility. So AT&T needs to identify which company they are and which company is requesting a permit and which company has signed a master license agreement. There's a legal reason for this. People have a right to know where your agent for service of process is if you're doing business in California, so that if a catastrophe occurs, service can be had on the responsible party. That's part of due process. That's why these things are important. Additionally, item 34 on the conditions of approval for this use permit require an indemnity from the applicant. So if the applicant is a non-existent DBA, that indemnity is worthless. It's empty. It's an empty bag. And I would submit to you that if New Singular Wireless wants to go forward with the project, they need to provide a document that shows proof that they have actual general liability insurance, which lists the city of Newport Beach as an additional insured. That hasn't been done. That was not produced at the last hearing, and I have seen nothing in the accompanying materials today that proves that such insurance has been provided to the city. So simply the assurances of staff personnel that they've reviewed the materials and that they're adequate is not a proper showing. We want to see some evidence. We want to see some documentation, and we want the permit issued to the proper entity so that the city is adequately protected in the event of a catastrophe. On that basis, I would turn now to the question of liability insurance, which I raised before the zoning administrator, and then I will conclude. So the city is in a position where it can demand adequate general liability insurance as part of the master license agreement to cover risk. Even though you cannot consider electromagnetic field energy for purposes of deployment, maintenance, or monitoring of this hardware because it's preempted under federal law, you can consider those radiation hazards when requiring insurance. And so any insurance that you require should not have a pollution exclusion that lists EMF as a pollutant. The reason for that is simple. Even though the applicant claims that they will operate this thing safely within the guidelines set by the FCC, accidents happen. Someone may exceed the appropriate levels and cause personal injury or death. And in that event, the city should be protected by having a general liability policy of insurance that does not have a pollution exclusion for EMF. And on that basis, I would submit it to you and request that you consider my position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pollock. I'll bring it back to the commission to ask any questions of Mr. Pollock or questions, I guess, to staff at this point. Again, this is all fairly new to probably some of us commissioners, so.
Chair,
Commissioner
this
Klein.
is Mr. Ketting.
All right, Commissioner Ketting.
Couple questions. Who is a citizen who hired this lawyer, number one? How many different cities has this lawyer been filing these kind of appeals, number two? And I'd like to hear from our assistant city attorney, who I'm sure vetted this whole process to find out this insurance claim issue. Thank you.
Commissioner Ketting was were the first two questions to me?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Your city code allows me to bring this on behalf of an anonymous resident.
Okay.
And he has requested that of me only because he's fearful of reprisals. I don't know whether that fear is well-founded, but that was the reason that he gave me.
Thank you.
Having said that, I have no currently pending appeals in any other city on this issue, although I have written a letter about this to the Public Works Director in the city of Napa regarding the same issue, and they've taken it under advisement with their city attorney and have told me they will get back to me on the issue.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if perhaps the applicant should also speak to some of the issues in terms of their corporate structure and so forth, because I think that is germane to some of the questions that are being asked, in spite of the fact that the agreement is separate from the land use entitlement. So perhaps it'd be beneficial to have them speak to some of the issues that were raised by the appellant,
Okay.
and then we can certainly add to that.
Great. And commissioners, are you guys okay with my move forward with the applicant to do as suggested? Okay, yeah. If the applicant is available to answer some of those questions about the questions raised by Mr. Pollock.
Yes, hello. I was hoping the Assistant City Attorney would support me in this. AT&T has provided all necessary documents to the city that basically show the relationship between AT&T Mobility and New Singular Wireless, and also AT&T Incorporated as the parent company. So AT&T Mobility is basically the manager of New Singular Wireless. And when we entered into the agreement last year as New Singular, part of the signing authority that was provided as part of that agreement outlined the relationship between New Singular and AT&T. So we feel that that was covered with staff, and that staff supports that everything's pretty kosher in regard to the entity name. In regard to the pollution coverage and liability, if staff would like me to go into detail on that, I can provide some detail. There is no exclusion for the EMF in the insurance that AT&T provides. There was a certificate of insurance provided under the New Singular Wireless name, and specific to the inquiry of insurance for EMF exposures, the certificate of insurance provided basically, let's see here. So AT&T or New Singular Wireless general liability insurance written by Old Republic Insurance Company with a limit of $1 million each occurrence, subject to a $10 million general aggregate. The insurance afforded New Singular Wireless PCS LLC by Old Republic does not contain an exclusion for EMF exposures. New Singular self-insures pollution liability exposures which may exist at any given point in time, and we also provided a self-insured certificate of insurance to staff. So we believe we are in compliance, and we've heard nothing different from staff, and so I'm hoping that we can get some concurrence from the Planning Commission tonight and move forward with our approval. Any other questions?
So what I will just add to that, just in terms of, who is the body that is obtaining the entitlements, and are they entitled under the master license agreement to, in accordance with the code, to obtain a permit to operate. It's my, having reviewed this, New Singular, as the applicant mentioned, is an entity beneath AT&T. And so as you see with a lot of land use entitlement projects that come before you, there are multiple entities, corporate entities sometimes involved, and what we have discovered or confirmed along the way that New Singular is an entity within AT&T, so they would be covered under the master license agreement. And then, you know, with that, though, I would like to sort of move back and focus and shift just in terms of whether it complies with our code requirements moving forward on this item. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Klein.
Thank you, Chair Wagon. Yeah, I just have a couple of questions for Mr. Pollack. I understand your client wants to remain anonymous. Are you able to share whether your client or where your client lives, or if you don't want to be that specific, just whether your client lives in the vicinity of the location that's being proposed for this site?
Yeah, it's my understanding that my client resides in Newport Beach and not, you know, within a block or two of the facility, but in the neighborhood.
And is your client taking issue or considering any appeal of any of the other small cell site locations being pursued by this applicant? Or is this the only one?
I don't know, because I haven't discussed that issue with him. I do know that he and I have discussed this particular site and this particular application because of the way the application was submitted, not because of the location of the site or any uniqueness regarding the facility itself. So my concern and the thrust of our appeal is to have the proper entity licensed and obtaining the MUP. The rest of it is not an issue with us.
So, okay, last question. So it's your client's position that if the discrepancy that you believe exists with the entity that has applied for this application, if that discrepancy, if there is a discrepancy, exists and is rectified, that your client takes no further issue with the location and the application on its face?
That's correct. That's correct. We're not here to prevent the deployment. We're here to make sure that the city is protected in the event of a catastrophe. And I would have, believe me, I would have appealed a number of these that have been submitted by the same applicant. But, you know, I have to pay $1,400 for every appeal. So we picked one in order to educate the city to the problem. And that's why we're here. This is almost an amicus brief. This is almost a friend of the city brief. We're here because we believe we're doing this to protect the liability on the part of the city.
Okay, thank you so much for your responses.
Thank you for asking.
Any other commissioner questions? All right. Commissioner Ketting, anything else? You're on mute.
Do that right now. Nothing from me, thank you.
Okay. Ben, back to what I had brought back earlier when I mentioned the fire station, then you kindly reminded me that Verizon has the small cell for all kind of the city stuff. In the Verizon documents, are they written identical to these documents, or is this strictly an AT&T issue?
There is an inherent difference between the two agreements, in as much as the AT&T agreement requires the minor use permit and the entitlements that you see today, whereas the Verizon installation has a public benefit through providing the necessary coverage to our emergency service providers in the city, and that has exempted them from the minor use permit and coastal development permit requirements. So that's where they're different. Other than that, I can't answer to any other similarities of the agreements.
Do we know if the indemnity area that is being referred to or referenced tonight is the identical to Verizon? I know that it's a different company and there could be different DBAs and things like that, but I mean, is what Mr. Pollock asking so extreme that AT&T's can't handle this, or staff, would say that this isn't feasible? It doesn't, as Commissioner Kleiman was saying, it doesn't seem like this is, and as the appellant is saying, they're not protesting the location. They seem to think they're helping the city. I think all of us, that's why we're here as commissioners. We all volunteered to help the city. So if somebody's saying that there's a benefit to the city that we're missing out on, I think that should be aired out as soon as possible, or at least continued to give the proper study to make sure that the city is protected, instead of just kind of moving this along just because AT&T's wanting it to get put on. I think we just need to make sure our due diligence is done.
Absolutely, and I think the council was looking out for that exact interest when they entered into the master license agreement. I don't have the two, forgive me, in front of me right now to compare, but typically our indemnifications are pretty stealth, and we wouldn't deviate too much between the two. So I think the council was mindful of protecting the city, and that's certainly a recommendation that can be provided to them, separate and distinct from the land use questions that come up before this body.
I guess if the council were in our shoes right now, would the council say, hey, when we entered in this, we didn't really think of that? Do you think there's a possibility of any of that?
I don't know if we are looking at making any amendment to the master license agreement.
Not in the future, but at the time, was this something that was discussed?
Chair Reagan, Simone Georges, I'm the community development director. I was involved with the negotiations with AT&T when we drafted the master license agreement. Police department handled the master license agreement. These are master agreements, so they are more of the template form. So I would surmise that they're more substantial conformance to each other. There are some nuances between the differences. These were drafted in negotiations at the time with AT&T with the thought of what is that revenue to the city, what is the benefit to the public. These are the kind of the template form, so the indemnification and the liability were used on both agreements in substantial form. Did the council in their deliberation talk about that liability per se? No, they didn't focus their attention on that. The council did focus their attention on what is the benefit to the community. There were some residents that were confirmed with regards to the RF emissions at the time, but the majority of the council approved their master license agreement with both AT&T and Verizon, and that's the extent of their deliberation.
And it doesn't seem like this case is dealing with the emissions could be an issue, but there's other things to it. So is it hard for the council to go back to this and deliberate a change, or is that something that's we're past that period?
I think we're past that. I don't think the council is looking at this time, unless one of the carriers, either Verizon or AT&T, wants to make a change to their agreement. Then it'll either have to go back to the council, or the city manager actually has authority for any future amendments. But the council is probably not really willing to entertain any changes at this time.
Besides what we're dealing with tonight on the appeal, is there any other course of action that Mr. Pollock or his client can take beyond this step?
I'm not aware of anything beyond this. They can definitely appeal to the city council if they would like. I mean, that's their due process right. And there's a coastal development permit on this application, so they have a right to appeal to the Coastal Commission. So those are the two appeal routes for the applicant. They can go to the city council or the California Coastal Commission.
Okay, great. All right, perfect. I will hand this over to the public now. And Again, if you want to make public comments and you're listening at home, the phone number is 949-270-8165. Again, that's 949-270-8165. And I'll go to the community room first. I see Mr. Mosier standing, and anyone else after Mr. Mosier will start there first.
Thank you, Chair Wykand. This is Jim Mosier. Regarding the director's last point, since the Planning Commission has not seen a lot of coastal development permits, it may be of interest to you to know that they can be appealed to the Coastal Commission only if the permit is approved. If it's denied, there is no appeal to the Coastal Commission. Odd but true. What I really wanted to say, since this is a de novo hearing, you are re-examining the application in its totality. And I just had a question about the core responsibility that you have here, both under our zoning code and the Coastal Act, to make sure that the technology is being deployed in the way that is least impactful, both aesthetically, visually, and in terms of proximity to residents. And I'm looking at handwritten page 14 in the agenda packet, which is the due diligence consideration of alternative sites. And as you saw from the presentation, the applicant has actually looked at things other than city streetlights. They've looked at utility poles that I don't think are owned by the city. And I wanted to point out in this diagram that is on handwritten page 14, the proposed site is the little circle in the exact center of the diagram. At the very top of it are some rooftops that are kind of light colored. And those are the rooftops of the Pavilion Shopping Center. Those are commercial buildings. Those rooftops appear to be as close to the proposed site as alternative number 5. And so I'm just seeking clarification if, in addition to utility poles, were those commercial rooftops also considered? I believe that would be a higher priority site if they were feasible. And so the question is, were they looked at? And if so, why were they rejected? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Anyone else in the community room? All right, we'll open it up to the phones. Doesn't appear to anyone. Ben, I guess that question from Mr. Mosier to me resonates. Is that something that was approached?
I would have the applicant representative talk to that point.
Great. Thank you. Same approach.
Yes, hello again. So AT&T with these small cell installations is focused on the public rights-of-way. There are certain rights that AT&T has as a telecommunications corporation to actually utilize the public rights-of-way. And we determined that small cells were ideally installed in the public rights-of-way using consistent heights of infrastructure that's there with these light poles, utility poles. It brings the technology out to where it's going to benefit the most people. And so we didn't really pursue private property options because it wasn't going to meet our technical needs with the deployment of these small cells.
Could you use a different technology, though, to get the exact same accomplishment?
Well, there's the macro cell site technology that is a larger site that could propagate over a larger area. But most of the time, in these types of areas that are dense residential, it's really hard to find a location that's zonable and that would work for both the jurisdiction and for AT&T. But in this case, taking the macro coverage and putting it into smaller pieces in the small cell is what's ideal for AT&T to do. And so the small cell technology is really what's going to benefit this residential areas the most by providing the capacity and the network density that we need. So it really is where AT&T's focused their efforts. They're not placing these on private property at this time.
Okay, great. All right, before I close the public hearing, is there any other questions from, just one last try from the commission for any of the folks, either the appellant or the applicant? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing since there's nobody on the phone, and I guess bring it back to the commission to decide if we want to carry on or follow up with the appeal. Commissioner Kleiman.
Chair, yeah, thank you. I'm prepared to make a motion unless there's any further discussion. It's tricky because it's not exactly the proper forum for this appeal. I mean, it is proper, but it obviously, since we're unable to really address the applicant's concerns, and as he pointed out, he really is just sort of filing this, as he calls it, an amicus brief that he wants to share the information with the city. And to your earlier question about returning the fees, I have been sitting here thinking about it, but the city's dedicated a tremendous amount of time and resources to this. So based on that, I think actually the fee's quite nominal. I think the applicant, their intent has been met. I think the due process has, definitely also been met here, and we are all, their intent was to educate us. We consider ourselves educated. We are aware of the issue. I feel very confident that our city attorney's office has fully vetted this, and will make sure that everything is done to the full protection of the city and its residents. So I am going to go ahead and make a motion to find this project exempt from CEQA and adopt resolution number PC 2020-18.
I saw Commissioner Klostermeyer wanting to speak. I just want to give her an opportunity to just, if she had any other further discussion on it before the motion, but the motion is still on the table, but I will just yield to her.
Yeah, just to comment, I appreciate what Mr. Pollock has brought before us. I think it is genuinely in the interest of the city, should there be some type of a claim in the future. I don't think that it's uncommon for large corporations such as AT&T to operate under several different entities or DBAs. I just want to reconfirm that we have done our due diligence to connect the dots between the applicant, what is stated on the certificate of insurance. Should anything happen in the future, we would be able to exercise that policy.
Thank you. Yes, that's correct. And, moreover, separate and distinct from this land use entitlement, there will be, continuing to work with the real property department in ensuring compliance with the terms of the license agreement. So, should this permit be approved, that would not prevent the city from invoking their rights under the license agreement and making sure that all the terms of that are complied with, including insurance.
I think then I would second Commissioner Kleinman's motion.
Great. And then Commissioner Elmore? Nope. Okay. All right. Any other staff comment? Okay. I'll call the vote then with the second. That will be Commissioner Rosine. Commissioner Kleiman.
Aye.
Commissioner Klostermeyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Elmore. Aye. Commissioner Lowry.
Aye.
Commissioner Ketting.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Mr. Pollock, you do have 14 days to appeal to the City Council. They may be more favorable to you. I don't know, but at least it's an opportunity that you have to carry that discussion.
Thank you. We will take up our appellate rights with staff and proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
All right. We are off to, and thank you, Commissioners. That was one that, not always in our wheelhouse, but that's what our role is, and I appreciate the commentary and the feedback from you guys on this one. Item number 5, this is the Shell Service Station Car Wash Edition, PA 2016-093. That site location is 1600 Jamboree Road. And for those listening in, and I believe there's a fair amount, the phone number to call in to comment when the time comes is 949-270-8255. 8165. Again, that's 949-270-8165. And just please bear with us on technical stuff. I know there are a lot of folks that are here in the community room that have interest, and those on the phone. So there will be a significant amount of patience, and commissioners, I just appreciate your patience as well. So Melinda, you're on.
Okay. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Melinda Whalen, Planning Division. Can you put up my, okay. So this is the existing gas station site. It is located on the corner of Jamboree and San Joaquin Hills Road. And it's within the Big Canyon Plan Community, and it's actually designated for a service station. And the Shell service station has been in operation since 1970. In 2014, there was a use permit amendment to expand the convenience store within vacated service bays and to add an alcoholic beverage license. So the current request is for a car wash addition, and this addition requires a general plan amendment to increase the floor area. The general plan designates the floor area for the site to match the existing gas station on site, so any increase in area would require this amendment. It requires a use permit to add the car wash, and the zoning code includes gas station regulation and guidelines. The proposal complies with all of these, except it is asking for relief from the front setback along the free right turn lane. Strict application of the code would require a 30-foot front yard setback. However, it acts as more of a rear yard. The free right turn lane does not provide access to the site, and it is a one-way road. In fact, the guidelines in the code recommend car washing services be provided toward the rear of sites to accommodate proper queuing and circulation. The car wash was presented at Commission in September 2018. The item was continued to provide the applicant time to conduct additional public outreach and to research improved design solutions to mitigate potential noise impacts to the nearby residential neighborhoods. So this is the current proposal, and the two changes that were made were a reduction in hours, so reducing the hours from 11 p.m. to 10 p.m., and additionally adding two 10-foot long, 16 feet tall wing walls, sound attenuated wing walls along the entrance and exit of the car wash to shield noise to the nearby residences. And on the site plan, you can see the queuing area and the existing convenience store in yellow. And the star is the proposed vacuum location. And the minimum required parking is provided on site. The required is 7 spaces. They provide 13 spaces. And the unique shape of the site with the 3 streets and the triangle prohibits moving the location of the car wash without affecting the existing circulation and access to the gas pumps. So the 10-foot wing wall extensions, like I said, will provide noise barriers to the adjacent residential, and they will also be they also provide the vegetation on facing the free right turn lane. So this is the view from the free right turn lane. So the green screen will be grown on the car wash wall and the wing walls. And the residents are shown. The closest residents are up in Big Canyon Plan Community. 115 feet and 120 feet across the free right turn lane and up a slope. So this provides a view from the free right turn lane. And this is the other view. So the noise analysis was updated with the added sound walls. From the most sensitive locations, A, B, and C are located in Big Canyon Plan Community, and D in the villas at Fashion Island. So without the wing walls, the projected noise levels were below the max allowed for the daytime limit, which is 55. And now with the wing walls, they're even further below that maximum allowed limit. So the car wash is conditioned to meet the design requirements of this noise study, including identical equipment types, solid walls with entry and exit doors closed during the washing and of each vehicle, and then the 10-foot long sound walls, and the exterior vacuum location, and then the reduced hours of operation. So based on these facts, staff was able to make all of the required findings and recommends approval of the resolution to the city council, or approval of the resolution recommending approval to the city council of the general plan amendment and conditional use permit. And the applicant and the applicant representative are available in the community room, and they're prepared with a presentation and a video, and the acoustical engineer is available as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Melinda. I'll bring it to the commission for any questions of staff. Anyone have any for now? Okay, and then while we're on this, I'll ask commissioners to report any ex parte communications. So Commissioner Rosine.
I did have communication and met with the applicant's consultant on site.
Commissioner Kleiman.
I spoke with the applicant's consultant on the phone.
Commissioner Klostermeyer.
I also spoke with the applicant's consultant on the phone.
Commissioner Elmer.
I met with the applicant's consultant.
Commissioner Lowry.
I spoke with the applicant's consultant over the phone.
And Commissioner Ketting.
I also spoke with their consultant, and I do have questions of staff.
Sure. And I spoke with the consultant on site, and we discussed the project and any changes from the previous time as before the council or before the commission. And I also made contact with residents in Big Canyon. Ultimately, the meeting that we had scheduled did not work out, but I did have some email communications. All right, Commissioner.
Chairman, this is Mr. Ketting. I did speak to one resident in the neighborhood.
Oh, thank you. And I'll call on you since you asked to speak. The floor is yours, and we will be patient because I know that you have interest, and I want to make sure that your electronic version gets across to us as good as possible.
Can you see me and hear me?
We can.
Oh, good. I had a question of staff on the site plan, why the building couldn't be moved closer to the mini mart, if you want to call it that, rather than over there by the property line. Number one, maybe the consultant would answer that, or the traffic people. Staff, did you discuss with the applicant the construction material for the walls and the actual car wash rectangular facility?
So to answer your first question, we did explore moving the car wash closer to the convenience market, and that would not work with the current circulation and access to the gas pumps. And I believe the applicant representative is also prepared to elaborate on that design. And the second question, I believe, is the walls will be constructed to meet sound attenuation requirements. Does that answer your question?
What are they? Is it a masonry wall?
Yes.
Okay. I have a concern about the 15-foot setback of modification variance, call it what you want, and why that is necessary and why you support that.
Well, there is a land-based hardship with the shape of the site being triangular and having streets on all sides. The gas station guidelines suggest the car washes should be towards the rear of the site. And the intent is of the 30-foot setback is for true street frontages that provide access to the site. The free right-hand turn lane is one way and does not provide access to the site.
All right, another question. What's the material? They say they have roll-up doors to quiet the facility. What are they made out of? Is it metal? Is it completely enclosed? What's it made out of?
I would like to refer to the applicant's representative to answer that question.
So I guess they didn't share that with the staff when they wrote the staff report. I'm concerned, the reason I'm talking about this 50-foot setback, there's some great looking, maybe a half a dozen or more mature pine trees along that road that help screen noise and visual for the people who live up on the in Big Canyon on that slope. I didn't see any grading plan. I'm worried about the topography in the parking lot is pretty steep. I'm worried that building it that close might kill some of the roots and the trees would go down over time, and then they would have little but visual. Have you guys looked into that? Staff?
I believe the trees will be maintained in their current location and there will be additional landscaping provided all around the perimeter of the site. But I have not looked into that specific question.
I recognize that from the landscape plan, but when you dig down to this property slopes toward Jamboree. When you dig down in there, you're going to cut roots, and those roots have been there 40, 50 years, 45 years maybe at least. I'm worried that would deteriorate that, and it could be an issue there. I'll have a few more questions a little bit later. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ketting. Yes, Commissioner Elmore.
I have a question about the queue. Why is 5 vehicles the number? How is that determined? Is that based upon the lot size, or is that a standard?
That's a standard requirement recommended by the city traffic engineer for the queuing of car washes.
Of all car washes across the
Correct.
city? In this layout, if there's a 6th car in the queue, where is that car going to queue?
Can I refer to the city traffic engineer?
Yes, the 6th car would come out beyond that queuing lane, that specific queuing lane that's constructed, and then it would probably go out beyond that first end parking space, should that happen. But typically, what we look at is, and the designs are typically for, at least 5 cars.
So if there's a 6th car, will it be on Jamboree Road, not moving?
No, it would still be on the site. If you can see that the 4 parking spaces at the top, it would probably go out into that one space closest to the car wash.
So in all actuality, based upon this site, how many cars can be backed up until there are cars on Jamboree?
Just looking at it visually, you could back up at least another, maybe as much as 8 cars on the site before it would
the
go
5
out towards
plus 3?
Jamboree. Right.
Okay. And is there signage in the proposal, wayfinding signage, in the event there's more than 5, there's a 6th car, a 7th car of where they're supposed to go? I
don't believe there is, no.
And if those parking stalls are utilized by somebody else, they have to maintain, they have to be open at all times, or can those parking stalls could someone in the mart park and block some of those stalls?
I think those stalls are for the site itself, so they're
part of the entire site, the convenience center, et cetera. So if you get to the point where you're past the 5th car and now you're going into that, there'd probably be a temporary blocking of that stall.
It'd be just blocking the stall.
Yeah, temporarily.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Elmore. Any other questions? All right, I will bring it up to I'll open the public hearing and the applicant to make a presentation. Councilman.
Good evening, Chair Wygan. I would also like to congratulate you on being appointed the chair of the Planning Commission, as well as Commissioner Lowry and Commissioner Kleiman for your positions as well. Thank you for your service. Tonight we're here to review again a car wash proposal for the Shell Station site at Jamboree and San Joaquin Hills. The last time the Commission heard this, it was a 3-3 split back in September of 2018. And so we will go through, I'll try and go through the slides quickly. A lot of the information was already covered, but a lot of it's also for the benefit of the audience that's here as well. So you can see on this slide, this is our project team. All these people are here this evening to answer your questions, should you have any. Next slide. So at the last hearing of this car wash project, I was not the representative at that point in time, but I did review the recording that was made of the meeting, and there was a number of, I'll call them tasks, it's being blocked by the picture there, but tasks for the applicant after the September 6th hearing. The first was to do more outreach, which I believe none had been done up to that point. Look to redesign the project for some additional sound mitigation, potentially reduce the car wash hours, look at potential enhancement of the berm landscaping to visually block the gas station from the view above of the homeowners directly above. And also there was a number of questions, and as there are tonight, about the queue for the 5 cars. Next slide. So what we're talking about here is the construction of 1,100 square foot automated self-serve car wash tunnel. It requires a general plan amendment because of the additional square footage, and it also requires a conditional use permit for the change in use, adding the car wash. We're going to run through, and you can kind of click through these fairly quickly, but these are site pictures. These are the pumps. There's the mini mart entrance. Again, 2 views of the pumps at the station. This is the front of the station, actually. Next slide. And these 2 are to the rear of the station. If you see the door there at the rear of the station, that's the door for the deliveries to the mini mart. These 2 pictures show on the left is the existing air and water service that's provided at the station, and to the right is the hydrogen containment area. Currently not selling hydrogen gas, but there are tanks and equipment back there that would enable them to do so. Next slide. This is the existing trash enclosure to the back of the station, along the planter area and just in front of the trees that Commissioner Keding mentioned, along the free right-hand turn. Here's a picture of the cars coming from both directions on the free right-hand turn lane, so you can have an idea what that looks like. Next is just a few pictures of the landscaping that currently exists at the center, or sorry, at the Shell station. These are on the frontages of the station. You can see they're well landscaped already. Those 2 pictures to the right is at the rear as a grass area, and then you can see the row of trees, again, that Commissioner Keding was referring to. Okay, so let's look at some of the architectural drawings for this project. Here you see the car wash is highlighted in blue on the left, and it's blown up in the inset on the right. There's an entrance lane there for the queue. There's the car wash structure, and then towards the end there is the exit from the car wash. Okay, so this is the first change in the project. As I said earlier, we were asked to go back and see what we could do about additional sound mitigation. And so we put our heads together and we said, well, maybe if we extend the walls of the car wash an additional 10 feet on both the entrance and the exit, that we would get some additional sound attenuation. And so we've added those walls, and as you'll see, or as you've already seen in the slide that Melinda showed, there was a significant reduction in the sound levels that the residents above would experience. Next slide, please. Another change in the project that actually Melinda did mention, but that we also took under advisement, the landscaping and the visual of the cars in the queue and the car leaving at the end. And so we added an additional 10-foot hedge past the 10-foot wall extensions. So basically, if your car is the first in the queue, it's probably going to be obscured certainly from the roadway and above by the wall and the hedge. And then as the car is leaving on the end there, also there would be some visual blockage of the car leaving the exit of the station. Next slide. The trash enclosure is going to be relocated. If you look at the inset there on the right, it's shaded in blue. It's just adjacent to the queue lane next to where the first car would be in the queue. Next slide. These are some renderings of what the site will look like. And so you can see from the front, you'll see the car wash with the two wing walls and then the 10-foot hedges on either end. From the rear, we have a green screen that will effectively block the view of what would look like the building from the people traveling through the free right turn lane. Probably would also provide a significant amount of screenage of the actual station itself as they're passing through, and so would probably improve the look for the traveling public there, and as well as anybody looking down on it from above. As you can see, the entrance is down there in the lower right-hand corner, showing where the cars would enter with the doors there. I'm informed that the doors, to answer Commissioner Ketting's question, are made of plexiglass. I believe there's some canvas involved too. Maybe the representative that's here tonight can expand on that, but those provide the sound dampening effect that we were looking for. And then on the other side, it's pretty much the same. Exit also has the door that goes up and down. Next slide. The queue, obviously, has been a lot of questions about the queue. So what I had the architect do was actually put 5 cars in the queue, so you can see that the queue does actually hold 5 cars. You can imagine that if, I guess there was a 6th, 7th, and 8th car, that they would extend down a little past where those 4 additional parking spaces are. But and then you could even go out probably into the driveway apron before you would reach a point where cars were actually in Coast Highway. Quite honestly, the car wash takes probably 6 to 7 minutes to complete from start to finish. I can't imagine someone, 6 car in line waiting 35 minutes to, get their car washed. It's just not that type of a situation. Usually it's more of an impulse purchase. People are there, they need a wash, they go. But, if they had to wait 6, 7, 8 cars, I mean, I've never done that. I've never seen that actually, but I guess that's all I have to say about that. So next slide, please. Parking spaces. So here you can see exactly where all the parking spaces are located. There's 4 there in the upper left-hand corner of the site. There's 2, 5, and 6 will be positioned along the queue line. 7 is between the exit of the car wash and the hydrogen station. And then 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 are all in the very front of the car wash, or in front of the mini mart actually, and so the code requires, I believe, 1 parking space per 200 square feet. The existing mini mart building is 2,300 square feet, so it requires 12 spaces, so we're overparked by 1 space. The car wash doesn't require any parking spaces, only 5 queue spaces per code. Next slide. Vacuum, air, and water service. So in the previous picture, I showed you the air and water service was back in the parking there at the upper left-hand corner. That's going to be moved to the front of the the mini mart. And then you can actually see it over there on the left, those the squares there and the circles there. So the vacuum, well, the air and water service will be there. The vacuum system for the customers that would also like to vacuum the car out will also be located in front of the mini mart. As it exists, they're to be located in the planter area, almost directly in front of the wall of the mini mart. They were positioned there specifically to provide sound attenuation for the homeowners above. And you'll see when we get to the sound chart that it succeeded in doing that. Next slide, please. Hours of operation. This also was a change in the project. Originally, the project was submitted for 6 to 11 p.m. And so we're requesting only now 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., which coincides with daytime sound requirements, daytime sound hours. Next slide. Okay, so now you're going to see a demonstration video. I know this was a problem at the last commission hearing. Apparently a video was shown, I believe, of the car inside the wash, and there was no sound. We decided to take a different approach, and don't play it yet, I'm not finished. Take a different approach and show you, be outside and compare and contrast what the car wash operation would look like with, a car being washed with the doors open like most car washes are, without doors, because most car washes don't have doors. And then comparing and contrasting it with the situation when the doors are down. We did not use this gas station car wash for our sound studies. The video is only meant to show the action of the doors and how they work, and you'll be able to tell, I think by yourself, just by listening, that they provide a significant reduction in sound levels when the doors are closed as opposed to the doors being open. And so as we move through this, you'll see the car in different stages of the wash. So it'll be entering, it'll be rinsed or soaked up. The rollers will spin. They'll be rinsed at the end, be dry, and then it'll come out. The only other thing that I would mention as you're watching the video, almost to the very end, you'll hear a sneeze in the video, and it's just interesting to note that when we actually filmed this, we were about 60 feet, I think, from the entrance of the car wash. The woman who actually sneezed, who you can hear over the car wash, was about 75 feet away from us, coming out of the mini mart, and it was just by coincidence we happened to catch it on the video. So why don't you go ahead and roll it, and we'll take a look. A lot of the noise that you're hearing is just the ambient noise, the background noise. There is a 4-lane street behind this car wash, as well as many cars in the car wash, like other customers. The beeping there didn't have anything to do with the car wash. I believe it was someone clicking their clicker to enter the car or lock it. The gentleman decided to fill his tires while we were videotaping. Again, all you're really hearing here is the traffic and the coughing. That was the sneezer. You can see as they exit, the door would come down again to be prepared for the next car in the queue. Okay. You can go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk about the sound and the noise analysis that was prepared by BridgeNet. The acoustical engineer, Mike Holritz, is here tonight to answer any questions you have, but we'll quickly run through this. Next slide. So this is City of Newport Beach exterior noise ordinance criteria. It requires in residential area commercial project next to a residential area be no louder than 55 dBA with an Lmax of 75 dBA. That's daytime hours, you'll notice 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., which match the hours of the car wash, proposed hours. Next slide. Ambient noise. So as you even heard in that car wash video we just showed, and as everybody knows, if they live in that area or they visit that gas station, that there's a significant amount of ambient noise that's caused by traffic in the area, airplanes flying overhead, anything that generates noise, that would make up the ambient noise. So the ambient noise is measured at 2 locations. You can see them in the lower right and lower left-hand corners. Number 1 is on Rue Fontainebleau, and almost directly behind where the car wash would be located. And number 2 is in front of, or at the corner there of the villas at Fashion Island. Next slide. Ambient noise at Big Canyon at that site number 1, just above the car wash. on Roof Fontainebleau was measured at 58.3. And at the villas at Fashion Island, the ambient noise even louder, 66.1. Please note that both of those exceed the city's code of 55 that we would have to meet. And the code does allow, though, if ambient is louder than what the code limits us to, that we can actually go up to the ambient and still be compliant. Next slide. This was, I believe, lifted out of the sound report. Projected noise levels from the planned Jamboree Shell car wash are based on the measured noise levels at an existing ARCO car wash facility at 3170 Carmel Valley Road in San Diego. The reason that they went down so far to measure the sound is that these car washes are almost like unicorns. They're very rare to have a car wash that has the doors associated with them in Southern California. At the time, I believe that was the closest car wash, really the only one to go to and take sound level measurements, and that's why they went down there. The facility uses the same Ryco Soft Gloss Max car wash system as we intend to use, and it also has the automatic doors at both entrances and exit. Next slide. Okay, so once the sound engineer or acoustic engineer had his noise levels from the equipment down in San Diego, he used those sound measurements to make a projection of what the sound levels would be like at 4 different receptor locations. That's A, B, and C on Rue Fontainebleau over there, and then D is across the street at the villas at Fashion Island. Next slide. As you can see here in this slide, is the 4 sites, A, B, C, and D. The city's code requires us to be under 55 dBA, actually under the ambient, but we'll just use 55 dBA since it's lower anyway, it doesn't really matter in this case. As you can see, the loudest that the sound's going to get is 39.7 dBA, under 40 dBA across the board. The receptor at B, and can you go back a slide for me so you can see exactly where that is? B is directly above the station, next to the house there in the middle of the 3 houses that front right there, Rue Fontainebleau, that probably are would be potentially most affected by the car wash or noise emanating up from the gas station. So as you can see, B actually receives the least amount of sound from the car wash based on the projections of the acoustical engineer. Next slide, please. And you can go to the next slide now after that. As you can see, the other 2 receptors, one was 30 and change and one was 31. Just to give you an idea of what these numbers mean, I mean, we're not all sound engineers, but you can see that on the left, it talks about common outdoor sound levels. And so we're all in the 30 range. You got to get up sort of into the 40 range where you get into quiet rural nighttime. So you would expect that the noise that will be experienced, if any, up above is almost nothing, negligible. Next slide, please. Just focused on, we talked a little earlier about the vacuum. The car wash will have a vacuum system for those customers who do want to vacuum out their car in addition to getting their car washed. If you look at the bottom, there shaded in blue, residential areas in Big Canyon are project to receive substantial shielding from the intervening retail building, and that's why we put it there to use that shielding, and are provided to experience or projected to experience vacuum noise levels of about 30 dBA. So again, at the very bottom of the range of the noise levels from this car wash. This meets the city's daytime ordinance limit of 55 dBA. Next slide, please. Landscaping on the berm, this was another thing that we were asked to look at and discuss with the association, potentially to provide some additional landscaping. Next slide, please. Here you can kind of see like a collage of what the landscaping looks like up there. I actually visited it with the HOA president at the time. She allowed me to come up and see it. It's actually grown in quite a bit since I was up there, but it is still a little spotty in areas. And so we, through our outreach efforts, which I'll cover in a little bit, we we made some offers to the association to potentially help them with additional landscaping, at least to provide some visual blockage or further visual blockage of the car wash from the road above and as well as the homes. But they never, they declined the offer on several occasions. Next slide, please. Okay, so, you know, a lot of talk about, not so much tonight, but I've heard a lot of talk about the Chevron car wash across the street. So, next slide, please. There is a Chevron station across the street. They do also have a tunnel car wash, although theirs is, it's really like apples and oranges. It's not, it's, although the shape of it's kind of the same. Ours is significantly superior to what, you know, they have over there. Next slide, please. So here you can see the entrance to the car wash. There's you know, no doors in evidence. I had a meeting with the residents by Zoom. There was a lot of discussion about whether there ever was doors there or not. I did go back after that meeting and actually walked into the car wash. To me, it never appeared that there was a door on the entrance. There does seem to be some type of a roll-up situation. Next slide, please. Some type of roll-up situation at the exit here. You can see like a track to the left there in the picture, but they weren't using it, number one. The car wash system that they use in there is different than ours. It's, you know, you pull in and your car gets washed, and then you have to keep driving forward to go past the stationary blowers. Our system is much different. You know, first of all, we do have the entrance and exit doors. The car never moves once it's in the car wash. The machinery actually moves over the car back and forth to clean the car and then to dry the car. So the blowers are attached to actually to the machinery and are not stationary. My understanding from the representative is that the stationary blowers are actually much louder than what the blowers are on the moving machinery that we'll be using. So significantly different. I'll also mention that the orientation of this car wash, you know, I know there's a number of residents here, and I've heard some people complain that they hear this car wash. Well, it's kind of not surprising actually, because the mouth of this car wash, if you look, you know, at a visual of it, is actually pointing directly at these homes in Big Canyon, and so naturally the sound is going directly out of the end of this thing, and you know, it's targeted right up at them. Our car wash is oriented parallel to the road up there, and so the noise, if you know any, is going out either ends, but is not going towards Big Canyon. It's going towards the streets, and I guess ultimately towards the villas and Park Newport, although we don't exceed sound levels there either. Next slide, please. So outreach, again, this was, I think, a huge issue at the last Planning Commission hearing. As you can see, we made multiple attempts, or I made multiple attempts at doing some outreach to not only to the association, but to the residents themselves. Just quickly going through it, as I mentioned earlier, I met with Marilyn Brewer. She was the HOA president at the time. We visited Rue Fontainebleau to see the landscaping up there. I made a presentation about a week later at their HOA annual meeting at the Big Canyon Country Club. There was approximately 60 residents there at the meeting. They gave me 15 minutes to make my presentation. I think I wound up talking for about 45 minutes, you know, trying to answer all the questions that the people had. And I thought it was a very successful meeting. Got a lot of good information, a lot of good feedback. After that, I met with Mark Rogers, the general manager of Park Newport. I laid out the project. He seemed to think it was a pretty good project, and probably a good amenity for his residents there to be able to have another car wash option. We made multiple offers to meet with the HOA board between February and September. For whatever reason, we couldn't get together. But finally, in September 25th, I did meet with the HOA board, made another presentation, talked about the wing walls and the extra landscaping, also reiterated our offer for additional landscaping on the berm. And basically, you know, the result of that meeting was that I was told that they would prefer to just come to the hearing and make their case here. So that's where we left it with the association. Subsequently, once this meeting was published, there was a letter received from Mark Chadow. He's a resident there. He lives probably about 2 blocks in. I believe the letter's in your file. I talked with him over the phone for probably about 20, 25 minutes. I had a very good conversation with him. on June 30th, at the request of Planning Commission, Planning staff, they asked me to do a further outreach to the community. And so through Lynn Swain, who I believe is here tonight, and the association, we sent a Zoom meeting request to all, I think it's 78 homeowners in the association to join us for the Zoom meeting. It was held at 6:30 p.m. in the evening so that they could be home from work and have time for dinner and still watch or sign on. I think we had about a dozen people on the call or on the Zoom meeting. I made basically the same presentation as I did tonight to them, and then entertained questions from them afterwards. I didn't include it up here, but there was some follow-up correspondence with one of the residents, Gerald Giannini. Let me step back. There was some unanswered questions at the meeting that I couldn't answer, and I said I would get back to them. I did that several days later. It was a 2-page question and answer response that is also in your file and was sent to all the residents that attended the Zoom meeting. And then subsequently, I received a letter from Gerald Giannini requesting more information. I think he felt that I didn't answer his questions from the Zoom meeting adequately, my 2-page response, and so I sent him back a response as well, which went out Tuesday of this week. And that was the extent of the outreach. Next slide, please. So we started off with this list, do additional outreach. I think we've done that. Additional sound mitigation, we've definitely done that. We've lowered the sound levels at least 10 dB across the board. Reduced the car wash hours. We've gone from 6 to 11 to 7 to 10. The berm landscaping, we've made the offers. They were rejected. And then the queue for the 5 cars, I think we've demonstrated that the queue can hold 5 cars and that the station could probably even have several more cars past that. Next slide. Okay, before we entertain questions from the Planning Commission, if I could just address a couple of these questions that came up with staff. I made a couple notes. There was a question about the trees along the back. The tall trees, behind trees will remain there. They are in the setback area. Basically, the planter that's there is pretty much going to stay the planter that's there now, and then the building will be built in front of it. If you like, I could probably have the project architect come up and talk about how we would treat that if we were building the car wash there. I imagine there's some footings that will have to be dug, but and how we might protect the trees. I think that can easily be done. Those are huge trees. They have very deep roots, and I doubt we'll see too much impact to those trees as a result, or any of the construction. And certainly we would look to protect the trees. They are valuable to the site, as they do, as Commissioner Ketting pointed out, provide view attenuation and just they look good, and they're part of our city arbor. There was also some questions about moving the building or the car wash closer to the mini mart. As I pointed out in the pictures, when we look to the back, the delivery entrance is there, so that would force, number one, a relocation of the delivery entrance, which is put there because that's where the storage rooms are, that's where the coolers and things are in the back, and so that facilitates the operation of the station, not having to have the delivery vehicles in the front or trying to go through where the customers are, with pallets of things or carts of things. In addition, moving the car wash up against the mini mart would create a situation that, I think, number one, it would block the pumps. I mean, we'd still have to provide the queue for 5 cars. That's almost 100 feet long. The car wash is probably a good 30 feet long, let's say, and then the exit's another 30 feet. So you're talking about 160 feet of station, or of car wash, that tucks in very nicely along that free right-hand turn. But once you start pushing it away from there, it totally messes up the traffic flow of the gas station. It could put potentially the entrance or exit much closer to the hydrogen station, and we just don't see how that is even feasible. So
He answered the questions about the queuing. I forget which commissioner asked about signage for, to point to where cars would line up, I guess, if the queue is filled with the 5 cars. I imagine we'd be happy to provide some type of signage that staff would feel would be effective to direct cars as to where to go once the queue is filled. But quite honestly, I just don't see very many, if any, situations where you're going to have more than 5 cars because of the nature of the car wash and the time it takes to get your wash. And then the question was if the queue did extend past the 5 cars in front of the parking spaces. There are, I think, 4 parking spaces there. So yes, I guess they would be blocked. But in all my times to that gas station there, the only cars I typically see parked back there is the manager's car and maybe the assistant's car. People, getting gas or at the pump. Most people are going to go in the mini mart or at the pump. And then there's still 6 spots in front of the mini mart that are almost, I've never even seen a car there, and many times I've been there, but certainly they would be available for parking as well. One other thing Commissioner Ketting didn't mention this time, but he did mention it at the last meeting, was the flow. Actually, he was very concerned about the flow through the station and how you would have gas deliveries and whether they would affect the operation of the car wash. And I'll just point out that the gas tanks are directly in front of the mini mart, and so the trucks pull in there, they fuel up the tanks and then they leave. They don't go to the back of the station. They wouldn't interfere with the queuing there. Certainly not if it's where it's located now, although it could be affected if we moved it somewhere else. So that being said, I think that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you, Council Member Rosansky. I'm going to ask commissioners to ask you questions or if they have any other questions, but first do want to ask if you agree with the recommended conditions that exist.
Yeah, they're acceptable to us, yes.
Okay, great. All right, I'll open it up to the commissioners.
Thank you for calling me Councilman Rosansky, by the way. It's been a long time since
Well, you earned the honor. Any other commissioner comments before I bring it to the public for questions? All right, and Commissioner Ketting?
I do have questions. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Peter.
How often does the hydrogen fueling facility use? Is it very effective, or could it be taken away and they could maybe move that car wash over there?
Well, I would probably defer to the Mr. Kim, the owner of the station, about that. But my understanding is that the facility was added there in 2010. There was a lot of talk about hydrogen-fueled cars, becoming more popular. Certainly, you've seen a lot of public vehicles, government vehicles, were converted to hydrogen, and so the facility was installed. Currently, it's not operational. They're planning on re-equipping it or doing some repairs to it, but they fully intend to operate the hydrogen tank, the hydrogen gas facility there. We never explored moving it. It would be a huge expense, I imagine. I think the owner also has some contractual obligations with Shell Oil Company as they actually operate that facility. I don't believe that the owner does. That's correct, Fred? Yeah. So the owner doesn't actually operate that portion of the station, and so, it's really Shell Oil's deal.
Well, if it's not operational, that might be an opportunity to move this over there, but let's move on.
Well,
you meant, Mr. Steve, you said 7 minutes to get your car washed, not 9 or 10?
Well, Fred, what would it normally take to get a car wash through there? Or maybe the representative from...
Well, they can just holler it out, so we don't drag this out too long.
About 5 minutes.
How many?
5 minutes.
Okay. I went through that car wash where you were, and it took 9.5 minutes. I just thought I'd tell you that, because you suggested I go down there and go try it. And where you made your film, was that in Irvine or in San Diego?
It was in Irvine.
When I went through there, the doors didn't drop down. I went back a second day and I went into the manager and I said, when did the doors drop down? Oh, they don't work that often. I said, okay, how do I make it work? I don't know. Just thought I'd tell you. Number two, what's the exterior finish? Is this car wash metal building or is it a block building? Masonry?
I'm going to call the architect up to answer that question.
Okay.
Before he gets here, though, I don't know what their policy is there for operating their car wash with the doors or not. Certainly, we're happy. We're required to have the doors per the conditions that we've just accepted. We'd happy to add an additional condition that says that the car wash can't be operated unless the doors are operational, if that would satisfy your concern. And so I'll turn it over to Mr. Gadiri, and he'll answer your question about the construction materials.
Good afternoon, I'm Ahmad Gadiri with A&S Engineering. Construction of the car wash will be block building with exterior facade material that's going to match the existing food mart. It's a sheet metal cover over existing proposed block wall that we're going to be building this car wash out of.
Right. And the 16-foot wall is a CMU block wall, I assume, with plaster.
Same thing, same construction, block wall.
All right. And why did you only go 10 feet on either side, not like 20 or 30?
The recommendation for the height of the wall was based on the acoustical analysis that was done, and we based on.
He's talking about the length of the wall, not the height.
Oh, the length. Same concern as far as just meeting the acoustical requirements of the report.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other commissioner questions? All right, I will have this go to the community room first. I did want to make mention that if they're the HOA president or if a spokesperson for the Big Canyon Association wanted to speak for longer than 3 minutes, and that meant, everyone that had the same opinion, I want to make sure that it's sufficient as possible, but I want to give opportunity for one spokesperson to speak and cover all the basics of the community's concerns. If that's not agreeable, then I'm happy to individually take each member of the public 3 minutes, but I did want to give that opportunity. And then just lastly, before we go, the public phone number is 949-270-8165. Again, that's 949-270-8165. And I'll start with the community room.
Thank you. Thank you and good evening. I'm Marilyn Brewer, a director of Canyon Mason Community Association and also a past president. I'm a 36-year resident of Newport Beach, and I've lived in Canyon Mesa for 8 years. Canyon Mesa is one of 8 subdivisions within Big Canyon, and we are comprised of 78 patio homes. You've not heard from other Big Canyon HOAs because Canyon Mesa is the only group of homes adversely affected by this project. Our community is bordered by San Joaquin Hills and Jamboree Road. We are the border HOA with smaller homes, patio homes actually, that lend themselves to indoor-outdoor living. My own home is 1,900 square feet. We're a unique community because of our demographics. While we are certainly not certified as a 55 and older community, it would be easy to qualify for one. Our oldest resident is 101 years old. Another is 94, another is 86, and 82. These folks I just mentioned live on the street most impacted by this project. In addition, the majority of our residents are 70 years plus. Out of 78 residents, an easy 70 are occupied by senior citizens. We live there because we've determined we want to age in place. The expansion of the gas station would have a grave impact on that decision. Initially, the gas station and the mini market have created loud, unanticipated truck noises and disruption. Something you need to be aware of. Noise travels differently from that location and impacts our neighborhood to a greater degree. The slides that were shown did not take any sounds from Rue Chateau-Riel, and that street is greatly impacted by these noises. You'll hear more about that from others. The gas station provides early morning deliveries. The size of the mini market and the volume disrupt the peace and tranquility of our lives. Mr. Rosansky stated that the reason the car wash couldn't be moved is because he gave you his reasons, but I live there and I use that gas station. I'm telling you, it can't be moved because that area is already maxed out. And if you enter that gas station and you want to exit again on San Joaquin, you have to back up, and that's where the cars are going to be lined out. As that gas station stands today, it's already overbuilt. We are seniors planning to age in place and finish our lives at Canyon Mesa. We ask that you give consideration to our quality of life. There are ample car washes within a 3-mile radius. Across the street, the Chevron station has the car wash. That's 100 yards away. Others from our community will be addressing you. We ask that you give serious consideration to what you hear. Our quality of life depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Brewer.
Good evening. My name is Michael Klaus. I'm president of the Big Canyon HOA. I'm here to advocate against the variance setback standard. As the introductory remarks reflected, Big Canyon was developed in the 1970s. Our association is comprised of 78 patio homes. All the homes have outdoor living spaces, patios, pools, etc. The rear of the Shell station is 30 to 40 yards away from the patio homes. The free right turn lane provides a fast alternative to turning right at the corner of Jamboree. Traffic noise is loud. There is no sound wall on the Big Canyon side of the road. The applicant here seeks a variance to the 30-foot setback standard to 15 feet adjacent to the free right turn lane. The Planning Commission should deny the request. The purpose of the setback standard is to ensure adequate light, air, and open space quality for the general health, safety, and welfare of the public. Here, the plan is for a 16-foot tall project, 44 feet away from Big Canyon, and 30 to 40 yards from the patio homes. The application is supported by a sound study which includes projected weighted sound level samples to support a position that the sound levels will be within the 55 dBA. By allowing the planned car wash to be constructed 15 feet closer to the free right turn lane with a 16-foot tall structure, this will result in a narrowing of the space between the car wash and the patio homes. When one considers sound levels generated by speeding vehicles on the free right turn lane, added to the anticipated sound levels from the car wash, common sense leads to one conclusion: a resulting echo chamber effect will cause sound levels to exceed the 55 dBA that our residents will have to deal with. Without a sound wall on the Big Canyon side, I believe our owners will have no effective defense to the echo chamber effect. Sound walls are expensive to construct. Consequently, our owners' quality of life, especially related to use and enjoyment of outdoor living spaces and the residential real estate values, will suffer and decline. Therefore, a variance here would be detrimental to the harmonious and orderly growth of the area. and not enhance the values that distinguish Newport Beach as a special place to live. For those reasons, I think the setback variance must be denied.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Gary, and I am a resident of the Canyon Mesa Association. My concerns with this proposed car wash include 1, the lack of a demonstrated need for another car wash, and 2, the financial impact of the proposal on our homes. Yes, we as homeowners knew a gas station was at the corner below our residential area, but when we bought our homes, it was simply that. It has since expanded into a mini mart, hydrogen storage station, and now our proposed drive-through car wash with 5-car waiting queue and vacuum cleaner station. The proposed operating hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. would bring constant daytime disruption to our adjacent community. While the sound may be acceptable to a sound engineer, these are people's homes being affected and not a business or commercial district. The disruptive car wash brushes, air drying blowers, required safety buzzer, which was omitted from the video preview we just watched, the opening and closing of the supposed sound barrier walls, rumbling vacuum cleaners, and idling cars as a way to enter the car wash were not intended uses of this parcel. You might as well place an In-N-Out burger if you want to drive through on this corner. The proposal before you would add a 3rd car wash, all within a half-mile radius. There are no car washes in West Newport, Balboa Peninsula, Lido Village, Lido Isle, Balboa Island, East Bluff, the Port Streets, or Corona Del Mar. In all of Newport Coast, there are no car washes and no gas stations. If they wish to expand business, why not select one of those areas instead of an already saturated car wash market? In a strip mall or shopping center, the station would be acceptable, but in such close proximity to our residential community, this car wash is completely unnecessary. I would urge you to deny this conditional use permit for the sake of your tax-paying homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Helga Meyer, and I live at 33 Rue Fontainebleau. I would like to address the proposed hours of operation, which seem completely unreasonable for a car wash adjoining a residential area. As an older resident of the community, I prefer to go to bed early and get up early. The noise level from the car wash operation would add significantly to the already heavy traffic noise. Also, the fumes of the possibly 5 idling cars would be an additional hazard to the health of the residents living close by. We already have to endure annoying noise from delivery trucks, their backup alarms, and even worse, from trash trucks banging their bins as a result of the 2 variances already issued to the applicant for the mini-mart and the expansion of the mini-mart. We would also have to suffer through the inevitable construction noise if this project were to be approved. With all of these negative environmental impacts combined, you are impinging on our right to be able to enjoy our homes, both inside and outside, not to even mention the loss of our real estate values. In closing, I would like to add that the houses on either side of me and across the street have been vacant for unreasonable times because they cannot be sold. I respectfully ask, and I beg you to be honest, if this project were to be proposed in your backyard, would you actually vote for it? I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chrissy Cruz, and together with my husband, Russ Cruz, not here this evening due to medical concerns, we live on 3 Rue Fontainebleau. When we purchased our home in 2002, it was a relatively quiet community. Over the past 18 years, as you can imagine, we've seen much change. In 2016, perhaps the most significant changes occurred when the Irvine Company completed development on the 4-story, 524-unit apartment complex spanning 7 buildings, known as the Villas. Our homes, our backyards, our neighborhood, and living environment were changed forever. As homeowners, we had no information that this massive project had been grandfathered in and agreed upon years prior. During the construction process, we were inundated with rodent problems, dust, construction debris, along with constant daily noise. Consequently, we've had to endure a massive increase in traffic noise and congestion from San Joaquin and Jamboree roads from the apartment community and the other development in the general vicinity. To add insult to injury, the flight path from John Wade has also been altered, and many planes departing fly more directly over our once quiet and serene neighborhood. The presence of a flyaway, a free right turn lane running behind the Shell station where San Joaquin feeds into Jamboree, only compounds the noise issue, with motorcycles and sports cars racing at all hours of the day and night to catapult themselves from San Joaquin into Jamboree Speedway. Over the past few months of COVID-19 quarantine, noise has been even greater, with less police presence and more reckless roadsters revving loud engines, keeping residents awake into the wee hours of the night. Adding to the long list of problems stemming from the apartment community's development, there is also significant noise generated by the Shell gas station. We hear delivery trucks at all hours of the day and night resupplying the convenience store that was allowed to be installed in '92 and then expanded in 2014. Loud trash trucks noisily raise their trash bins for dumping while their backup warning devices blare loudly beeping horns, banging the bins many times in order to empty the receptacles. I find it interesting, Mr. Rosansky, in the video presentation you mentioned a sneeze was audible at 75 feet. As sound is omnidirectional, how much more noise would be generated by a car wash than by a human sneeze? With the chaos in our world today and the absolute stressful situation residents face daily, quarantining at home, living and working at home, restricted movements and daily health risks, high levels of noise can only increase agitation, stress, and sleepless nights. As a light sleeper, I cannot physically tolerate 1 more decibel of additional sound. Presently, there is another car wash station across the street at the Chevron, and also one less than a mile away at Newport Center Drive in a commercial zone where it rightfully belongs. Lines and wait times are never an issue, and almost on all occasions, drive-through service is immediately available. Council members, I humbly ask you to consider our plea. Honestly, would you want more noise, stress, and sleepless nights in your home and backyard? Would you allow this project to be built for homes of your loved ones?
Thank you.
Isn't the responsibility of the Commission to protect the residents of the community? I strongly urge you not to approve the project and let the residents of Big Canyon live without inflicting additional noise and turmoil. Thank you for your time and work on behalf of the community.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Gerald Giannini, and I live in Canyon Mesa on Rue Fontainebleau. It's my belief, through my own personal investigation of what Mr. Rosansky's video alerted me to, that I believe that this proposed car wash does not adequately mitigate the sound that it's going to intrude on our neighborhood. Therefore, I request that the variance, the general plan amendment, conditional use permit, and the entire project should be denied. Based on the video that we saw, I went down to the ARCO station at Quail Hill and wanted to check the sound for myself. Even before I got out of the car, I was flabbergasted. The car wash on July 4th around 11:30 when I was there was very busy. No doors operate. This is totally contrary to what was said at the Zoom meeting. They said that the car wash could not operate unless both entrance and exit doors were closed. Again, I went into the mini mart and asked, do you have doors? The lady said, no doors, no doors. By the way, this car wash operates from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., much more restricted hours than the city is looking at. So I'm completely flabbergasted why this situation exists. I don't know where or how Mr. Rosansky did that film. I've been down there one other time. No doors, car wash operates. So my question for the council or for the commission, how are you going to safeguard what is supposedly why there's no noise when it obviously can be jerry-rigged or the operator doesn't want to use it? So I used a sound meter around 11:30. I stood 400 feet approximately away from the exit, and I got readings of 66.7 dB to 78.2 during the initial wash and rinse. When the blowers and the dryers cycle came on, it went from 95.8 to 107.4 dBs. Again, no doors. The other question sort of stuck in my mind, so on Monday I called Ryco Car Wash and got a technical rep on the line and asked him, what type of door materials do you have and how do they work? He said, we don't install or even manufacture doors. That's a third-party provider. So again, I think we're not being told the entire picture. As far as the 5 vehicles, this is a self-service station. So a sign is going to do nothing. People get in line and they're going to just wait and then they're going to be out on Jamboree Road. I don't see how a sign saying no more than 5 cars in a queue, how are you going to know which one is yours? Are you the 4th, 5th, or 6th? In closing, I would like to just say that I think that the demonstration that was shown and what I actually observed more than once at that car wash vividly says that this is a destructive impact on our community, and it has no purpose and no value to the city of Newport Beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Wagon and Commissioners. I'm Leonard Simon. My wife Myrna and I reside at 37 Rue Fontainebleau and are residents in the Canyon Mesa community. Our patio home backs up on Jamboree and is approximately 330 feet away from the proposed car wash addition, and we strongly oppose the approval of this project. The Irvine Arco station presented in the video to our HOA is a stucco building with clay roof tiles. The roll-up doors are not in operation. They've been permanently turned off, according to an employee at the facility. This is contrary to what was shown in the video. Finding B5 of the proposed commission resolution indicates the car wash will be made of painted metal sheathing. The metal sheathing structure acts to amplify the noise in the structure, much like a speaker in a stereo system, and this is not acceptable. As to the CEQA exemption, the report indicates this project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15303 under Class 3. Most car wash applications in California use this exemption. However, CEQA 15300.2 recites several exceptions, including cumulative impacts and significant effects, while 15303 cites several commercial examples such as stores, motels, offices, restaurants, and similar structures. I find it hard to see how a car wash qualifies here as a similar structure. 15303C further indicates it's okay if the surrounding area is not environmentally sensitive. The homes in Canyon Mesa community should be considered as environmentally sensitive area. Consider the added noise from the car wash operations, added cars at the service station, additional exhaust fumes from 6 or more cars queued waiting to get into the car wash. That can be up to 30 or 40 minutes of idling. The additional traffic presented by car wash and the additional traffic presented by car washes coming for car wash only. That's noise, fumes, pollution, and added traffic. The Canyon Mesa residential area is an environmentally sensitive area, and this project should not be approved. As for the hydrogen generating facility, that existing facility generates and stores hydrogen. The distance from the car wash exit to the walls surrounding the hydrogen facility is approximately 25 to 30 feet. The new low landscaping element that is proposed should block this direct path. But the question is this enough to prevent an out-of-control vehicle from crashing into the hydrogen facility? This is a safety issue. For all these reasons, I'm opposed to this project. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Mark Coleman, and along with my wife Joan, who's here with me tonight, we reside at 34 Rue Fontainebleau in the Canyon Mesa project. We're here tonight to oppose this project. I want to talk a little bit about the need for a car wash. We all know that there are a number of places that people can go to get a car wash, and there are many mobile operators. The dictionary explains that need indicates necessities that are indispensable to people, whereas wants are desires that people have that they can live without. This is a situation where there is no need for this car wash, including through the most recent owner presentation to the community by Mr. Rosansky. Not one shred of evidence has been offered as to why there is a need to have a car wash on that site. They may want it, I understand that. There is no need. As far as economically, it's been pointed out appropriately that, and I found out for the first time tonight, I always wondered why whenever I went by the hydrogen facility, which is thousands of times now, there was never anybody there. So you already have a site that is burdened with a mini mart and expansion of the mini mart with a hydrogen facility, and so it makes no sense to us. The site has enough plastic surgery going on right now. This is an automated car wash, so economically speaking, I don't see any jobs being created for Newport Beach, so you can scratch that opportunity. You know, the operations of the car wash to somebody, and I understand Mr. Kim owns somewhere between 50 and 90 car washes. The amount of profit to his enterprise coming from the car wash is negligible and is a rounding error. Nothing's going to happen beneficially to the city economically. So it boils down to where are the real economics here, and the economics are in the damage to the property values of all of us that live adjacent to the proposed car wash. I guess a point is why favor a non-city resident for a commercial project over the welfare of people? And in Joan and my case, we have lived in the city of Newport Beach for 50 years and spent a lot of money here. And why on earth you're going to go out of your way to grant a project to someone who is from out of town? That's fine, I get that, but let's think of the residents where the real impact will be. And finally, I just have to say that when that 30-foot setback was put in place, I'm sure there was good reason for it. And now to take and move that from 30 to 15 feet seems excessive and is further indication that the proposed car wash project is being shoehorned on an already overbuilt property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, I am reading this letter on behalf of David Kuhn, Jr., who due to health reasons is not able to safely come to this meeting. My name is David Kuhn, and I live at 30 Rue Fontainebleau in Canyon Mesa neighborhood of Big Canyon. I am adamantly opposed to allowing the owner of the Shell station any more approvals to expand his operation. I saw in the minutes of the November 21st, 1991 public hearing to allow a mini-mart in the first place that at that time, Mr. Harris was representing the owner, and he said the approval was needed by the owner to supplement his income. And if that wasn't approved, it was possible that that station would cease to exist, and there might be some type of ominous retail put on its place. So that was approved. Excuse me. Mr. Harris then said it would be in the best interest of the city and Big Canyon to approve this. He also tried to address the public objection to the mini-mart by stating that the additional space is not intended to sell more than just gum and sodas, quote unquote. I don't think the mini-mart was selling only gum and soda in 2014 when the owner was granted yet another general plan amendment and conditional use permit to expand the mini-mart and add beer and wine to its list. Yet in both cases, the Planning Commission found that the applications would not be, quote, detrimental to the health, safety, peace, morals, comfort, and general welfare of persons residing and working in the area. The Planning Commissioner made similar findings in 2010 when, without even holding a public hearing, they approved the hydrogen storage facility. Reading through the information, there was a grant by the California Air Resources Board that resulted in the property owner receiving a windfall of $1.7 million to have this hydrogen station, which now we find out isn't even in use, but yet it still sits there. Tonight, you are being asked to make the same type of finding in order to add a car wash that isn't needed or wanted by anyone but the applicant, based on a number of erroneous statements by the applicant's advocate, and also by what we've learned by physically going to the station that's supposed to be sound redundant, and we find the doors don't even work. I could go on, but I submit that a service station is inherently incompatible and non-harmonious with a residential development, and it should have never been allowed, but it was. But let's not add to this any more than what has already been done. Approving any more additional development on the site doesn't take into account cumulative effects of the previous actions that have been made that made this situation intolerable.
Thank you, sir.
Please deny this request. Respectfully submitted, David B. Kuhn, Jr. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. My name's James Sanders, and my wife, Kathy Caleo, and I live at 4 Rue Fontainebleau. Coincidentally, we're both licensed marriage and family therapists, and I hadn't thought about that before this, but this is not good. This is not good for marriages and families in Canyon Mesa. It's gotten a lot louder in the area in the last 4 years. We've been trying to sell our house for the last 2 years, and with some price reductions to no avail. We would like to move to a quieter area, but it seems like it's just going to get louder around. I respect Mr. Rosansky for his efforts on Mr. Kim's behalf, and I know that he is very well regarded. I understand that the city may benefit in some ways, but it will decompose the city and Canyon Mesa area in far more important ways. Please understand our standpoint. We, the residents, do not want the needless extra noise and traffic. Home values will continue to go down. I want to keep this brief. Please do not approve this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Lynn Swain, and my husband and I reside at 7 Rue Marseille and are both strongly opposed to this car wash addition. If this variance is granted, this will mean a non-Newport Beach resident will realize increased profit at the expense of decreased property values for residents that have invested here in Newport Beach. We have several homes that have been on the market for many years. Yes, I said years, and they are not selling, even after dramatic price reductions. The property arguably most affected by the possibility of this potential expansion is 31 Rue Fontainebleau, which sits directly on the corner next to this gas station. This is a beautiful 2-story home, very reasonably priced, with 2 price reductions, and it has been vacated almost 3 years ago, and it still cannot sell. Nobody's looking at it, much less buying it. 35 Rue Fontainebleau, 2 doors down from it, was on the market for 2.5 years. It finally sold and is now vacant once again. Why? Because the owners decided to move back to their old quiet neighborhood in Alta Vista, and we miss them. I reached out to Georgina Jacobson of Coldwell Banker and Elizabeth Doe of Keller Williams, who both have these properties listed, and asked them, why do you think they're not selling after such dramatic price reductions? They both said when buyers come at different times of the day to assess the noise and traffic, the uncertainty about more noise if the conditional use permit is approved has a detrimental impact on consummating a sale. During the approximate 2 years that this proposed car wash has been under review, I don't know if you're aware, but realtors and owners must disclose this possible car wash item to prospective buyers. Since very little verifiable facts are known about the outcome or the final details, especially the noise invasion, potential buyers are scared away. Our property values are plummeting because of this uncertainty. Not only decreased property values, but with difficulty even selling our homes. Buyers do not want to pay well over $1 million to listen to the machinery noise, vacuums, and delivery trucks backing up all day and night. The owner was already granted a variance for the addition of a convenience store that has had a very large impact on our community regarding noise and lights. I understand that the city will benefit by increased tax revenue, but it will be at the cost of our home values and our quality of life. So I'm asking you this evening, at what point do you say enough is enough? These residents do not deserve this car wash in their backyards. I also have another letter to read from a homeowner who is in quarantine. May we start the timer again so that I can do that?
Ms. Swain, I would suggest maybe another representative in the audience that could do that. Just, it's important to stay to 3 minutes. If you could do.
This is from somebody else. Jerry read too.
I would like.
Do you want to read it?
Yeah, that would be good just to move things along.
I don't see why, but okay. You've got one to read. Marilyn, would you like to read Linda
somebody who
Bentos?
hasn't already spoken, it's 3 minutes per person. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to keep things in the rules.
Yes. Okay.
If you want to go through abbreviated version of it, I'm welcome.
No,
I'd welcome
I'd like
you
to read her statement.
Dear Planning Commissioners, since I am still in quarantine, I am unable to attend in person the public hearing. I submit my views in writing with the request that Lynn Swain read it aloud at the meeting. Like many other residents of Big Canyon, I am distressed about the proposed project of R&M Pacific Rim to build a car wash addition to the Shell service station. Please acknowledge that most of the residents in this area are mature citizens who have devoted their lives to working hard, contributing to their communities, paying taxes, and raising families. Now is our time to enjoy the comfort and serenity of our homes and neighborhoods. When I looked to purchase here, my realtor referred to this area as an oasis away from the clamor of city life. Indeed, it is a beautiful and pricey place to live, but the service station with its loud delivery trucks, bright lights, and general business clatter already interferes with its peaceful ambiance. And to see home values go down because of this business is alarming and wrong. Why should homeowners lose money so that Mr. Kim can make more? Regardless of what the car wash sound study suggests, we all know that it will add to the noise disturbance for many hours each day. What could possibly be the justification for this? The principles of decision-making are violated here. Based on a cost-benefit analysis, Mr. Kim reaps all the benefits while residents are burdened with all the cost, with no benefit whatsoever. This is not a fair or reasonable decision by any measure. And then the construction phase will add continuous noise while many, like myself, are restricted to home all day, possibly for several more months, unable to escape the intrusion into their peace and comfort. Please consider approval of this unnecessary project on the basis of its impact on good residents who deserve better from their local government. Thank you so much, Linda Bentall, 38 Rue Fontainebleau.
Thank you, and thank you, Mrs. Swain, for understanding.
I'm going to read a very short statement from actually our next door neighbor. Before I do that, I want to address one item that came up, and that was a question about the doors on the car wash at the Chevron station. I don't go back there anymore because I think the car wash stinks, frankly, is not very good. But as to the issue about the doors, when I went there probably 2 or 3 times a couple of years ago, there was a door that opened and you went in and it closed and your car moved. There was a door at the end that was closed and then it went up. And yes, those doors are gone now, and I wonder if that's because there's some other negative impact on their process. But it did have doors, doesn't now, and that's curious to me. Okay, the statement it says, I am Chris Alavizos, residing at 32 Rue Fontainebleau. My fiance, Donna Becker, and I purchased our home in June 2019, moving from Costa de Caza and Long Beach, respectively. We chose Big Canyon because we wished to retire in the premier and world-renowned city of Newport Beach. During the financial negotiations with the former owners, we expressed our trepidation about the noise and lights from the close proximity of the Shell gas station, which directly affects Rue Fontainebleau. Mr. Kim's request for a conditional use permit will allow his car wash to literally be built in our backyard, as he is requesting a reduction of the setback by 50%. We are convinced that this 50% variance would certainly devalue our home. This setback has been in place for more than 40 years and provides a cushion of noise pollution that is direly necessary for homeowners in Big Canyon. We ask, why is this owner's request to remove openness given greater weight than the residents who will undoubtedly have to live with and suffer from the additional loud invasion to our neighborhood? We strongly urge your denial of this project.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Skip Wilson. I live at 9 Rue Fontainebleau. I'm a 40-year resident of Newport Beach, and I want to maybe cut short of what I had to say and go right to the impact of the values of the real estate. 4 Rue Fontainebleau, as the homeowner just stated, has been on the market for 2 years. 19 Rue Fontainebleau has been on the market for 180 days and undervalued. 31 Rue Fontainebleau has been on the market for 390 days with a $100,000 price reduction, undervalued at the present listing. 36 Rue Fontainebleau has been on the market for 120 days. 20 Rue Grand Ducal has been on the market for 210 days with price reductions. The home I purchased at 9 Rue Fontainebleau was on the market for 200 days, and after they lowered the price $100,000 and then another $100,000, I decided to purchase it even with the constant noise of the road freeway outside my bedroom window. Based on these prices, I think you're making a big mistake to allow further noise for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Carl Swain. I live at 7 Rue Marseille in the Canyon Mesa Community Association, and am the current president of the board of directors of that association. We are the association which will be most severely affected by approval of this project. This evening you have heard numerous homeowners of our association strongly voice their objections to this project, and I speak for more than the 65 remaining homeowners who cannot be here tonight primarily due to the COVID-related health concerns, who also oppose approval of this project. In summary, I would like to emphasize the following points that have been touched on by the other previous homeowners. There's no apparent economic need for another area car wash. There is one directly across the street at the Chevron station and another less than a mile away on Newport Center Drive. There's no reasonable basis for approval of another car wash using a cost-benefit analysis either. Newport Beach homeowners who pay property taxes and financially support area businesses bear all the detrimental effects of this project, and the non-resident owner reaps all of the benefits. Approval would have an adverse effect on neighborhood property values, as it's been pointed out. You have heard numerous details of the decrease in our property values and sales volume due to noise, glare, and light intrusion. This property has been previously granted numerous approvals for the expansion of their business, each of which has resulted in additional noise and nuisance for nearby neighbors. Now they want to decrease the setback on the flyway curve to 15 feet, which will further increase noise intrusion. And it may increase the intrusion of light as well, due to the danger that the construction poses to the mature trees on that curve. The noise data utilized is more than 4 years old. As well, the noise comparisons used for the RCR car wash in Irvine were taken with the doors closed, which according to the operator on site is not usually the case. Many car wash operators eventually stop using doors, including a Chevron car wash across the street. The station in question has no outside attendant and the car wash is self-service. Who will make certain the doors are closed during operation? I would also like to point out that this location has numerous existing and annoying noise peaks with dBA levels in the range of 80 to 100, well above LEQ, such as airplane, flyover, motorcycle, truck, and loud car noise. The addition of another peak noise source, such as a car wash operation, would have a detrimental and a cumulative effect on our homeowners. Finally, Newport Beach Code states that approval of a conditional use permit requires operation, and I quote, operation of the use of the location proposed would not constitute a hazard to the public inconvenience, health, interest, safety, or general welfare of persons residing in the neighborhood of the proposed use. It is clear from the presentations tonight that this application does not meet those standards. Again, on behalf of our 78 homeowners, I strongly urge you not to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swain. Anyone else? Okay, I'll bring it over to our phone calls. Do we have any phone calls? Nope. Okay. All right. The applicant gets an opportunity to respond. Does Council Member Rosansky wish to rebut any of the comments?
Chair Wigan, obviously there was a number of comments here by the public. Many of them were redundant, so I'll try and distill them down as best as I can. Hopefully I can address all of them, and certainly if you have any follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer them. First, I'd like to point out, and I did check with the city today, that there are currently no complaints on file against the Shell station that were filed by the public. I confirmed that today with the planner, Melinda Whelan. So, not saying that there's never noise generated from that station, but at least they didn't rise to the level where someone actually went down to City Hall and filed a complaint. There's also talk about the need for the car wash. Well, I'm not sure where need is in the code, but I'll address it anyway. Several of the people who came up talked about, well, there's a Chevron station has a car wash, and there's another car wash on Newport Center Drive in Fashion Island. I think the staff will confirm that the Newport Center car wash is actually being proposed for redevelopment. There's actually been several proposals over the last few years. The most recent one is to redevelop it into residential apartments or condominiums. That car wash will be leaving, whether it's this year or next year, it will be going. So that leaves one car wash, I guess. There is a Chevron. I went and checked, I Googled it today. I could only find 6 car washes, including those 2, in all of Newport Beach. The 2 are here on the east side of the bay. There's one on Superior, one on Coast Highway, and then 2 up by the airport. So I wouldn't say that we're overrun with car washes here in town. I mean, if you figure there's about 60,000 people with driver's licenses in Newport Beach, and I guarantee you virtually everyone on average has a car. That's about 60,000 cars, so that's about 10,000 cars per car wash. So I'd say there's probably still some room for the need for a car wash. In addition to that, as was pointed out by Melinda earlier, the original station was built in 1970. That's 50 years ago. To expect that, you drive into that gas station today and have a gentleman walk out from inside and ask if he could fill up your car, pump the gas for you, and maybe wash your windshield, that would be ridiculous. No one would expect that today because the business models have changed over time. And for Mr. Kim and other station owners to stay competitive, they need to keep up with the times. And so you've seen full service go to self-service. You've seen self-service add mini-marts. You've seen mini-mart stations add car wash tunnels. I mean, many gas stations now have that amenity. It's not an unusual thing. And so, and I think what most people don't realize is selling gas is not a very profitable business. I think the gentleman who was talking back in 1992 is correct. If they didn't put a mini-mart in there, they might not be there because a lot of the money is actually made in the mini-mart and the extra services and things that are sold to the customer as they come into the station. So gas is probably one of the least profitable items that is sold there. In addition, it's a prominent corner. The applicant doesn't own the property. He owns the business there and the buildings, but not the property. He leases it at a very significant rent, which obviously requires significant revenues to maintain the station there so that the traveling public can take advantage of it. Several people have already said that the station has received 1 or 2 or more variances. I don't believe that those were variances. I believe that they were amendments to the use permit. I could be wrong. I didn't really check the record for variances, but I know that there were changes to the use permit to allow these additional uses for mini-mart and the expansion of the mini-mart. But that's a typical thing. It is a permitted use in this zone, as is a car wash with the conditional use permit. And that would be the appropriate thing to do when you wanted to change the use of your station. So I think that covers that. Another comment that was made by multiple speakers, that the applicant does not live in Newport Beach. He's an out-of-towner. Why are we giving an out-of-towner anymore? Well, honestly, I don't see where that's in the code too. Where being an out-of-towner is one of the criteria for consideration, number one. Number two, I'd venture to say many businesses in town, and thank God, are owned by out-of-towners that are willing to invest in our community and help us pay for a lot of the things that we enjoy here as residents of Newport Beach. Sales tax revenue is a huge portion of the revenues that the city collects. And I imagine that Mr. Kim at his station collects a lot of sales tax revenue on the gas that's sold there. So, I encourage people from out of town to come here actually and invest, and I'm really kind of surprised at that kind of talk. We had several comments about the construction of the building. I think we had covered it in the presentation, but I would like to ask our engineer, where'd he go? Right, to come up. I think there's some misunderstanding as to the construction of the building. Why don't you come up and explain? I believe that the shell of the building is constructed of block or masonry material, that the metal, it's not a metal barn where it's going to be reverberating metal. The metal is just cladding on the outside, but please come up and verify that for us.
That's correct. The proposed construction is going to be block wall, which is the interior wall, and the ceiling is going to be block. And in order to match the architectural style of the building, we are cladding the block wall with sheet metal panels that match the existing Food Mart building.
I believe there was also a condition added to require not even just block, but split block specifically to help with any sound attenuation. And that was a recommendation of the acoustic engineer in the sound report, and we're happy to comply with that. Several of the people here tonight said they visited the car wash. I think Chair Ketting also said he visited the car wash where we filmed the video. You know, honestly, I didn't investigate the conditions of approval for that car wash, whether they're required to use the doors or not, whether they put the doors in because they thought they were a good idea and decided that they weren't. You know, we don't know why they use them or don't use them. The fact of the matter is we only went there to demonstrate what the doors are and how they're used and how they do reduce the sound. As far as the Chevron across the street, again, I visited there. I didn't see any evidence at all, whether a track or even holes where a door might have been on one end. There seemed to be some type of roll-up material on the other end. But I did look at the conditions of approval for that car wash. I don't believe that there are any conditions requiring doors at that Chevron car wash. And so if they did have them at one point in time, I'm not calling anybody a liar, maybe they did have them, I don't know. But obviously they took them out, they weren't required to have them, and that's to their detriment. I've already said earlier that we'd be happy to accept a condition that would require that the doors be used or in operation at any time that the car wash is being used, and if the doors are not operational, that the car wash cannot be opened for use by the public. So I think that's covered most of the issues that the residents brought. Oh, actually, I'd like to address one other thing. A lot of the residents here, and I feel for them. I mean, they're concerned about the values of their home. They talked about a lot of different homes that, I didn't research how many homes have been on the market, how long they've been on the market, and whether they've had price drops or not. But I do know that I've been a realtor for 33 years. I got my real estate broker's license in 1987. I still have it today. And, rule one of real estate is location, location, location. And unfortunately, the location where they bought is next to two very busy streets with an airport that flies airplanes overhead. There's a significant amount of ambient noise that is generated exclusive of the Shell station and exclusive of any car wash that might be there. And certainly, I think we presented evidence that through the sound study that the sound levels that will be generated from the car wash are insignificant compared to the ambient noise. Excuse me? I'll wait until you're done. Thank you. They're insignificant in comparison to the ambient noise that already exists there. And I'm happy to have the sound engineer, if you'd please come up and discuss a little bit about, ambient noise at 58 to into the 60s as compared to a maximum of 40 that we would experience with the station. So.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Mike Holritz with BridgeNet Consulting. I've been the acoustical engineer on this project pretty much since the outset. As has been mentioned tonight, accurately, noise is cumulative. So if there is noise at the site now and a car wash goes in and creates noise, the total noise level after that happens would be greater than before. However, noise adds logarithmically, and when you add 40 dB to an existing 60 dB noise level, you get 60.4 or 60.1. You get a noise level increase of way less than 1 dB. People mentioned CEQA and a level of significance. CEQA's level of significance is a 3 dB increase, meaning that if the noise levels go up overall 3 dB, it's considered a significant increase and it needs to be addressed, usually mitigated. Noise levels at all the sites that were analyzed go up by less than 1 dB when adding the car wash noise to the existing ambient noise? I hope that answers that question.
Okay, thank you. Anything else to add, Councilman?
No, I think that, that sums it up. I mean, I think we've shown that the sound levels don't even come close to what the city would allow at 55 dB. We've listened to the residents as far as trying to improve the project. I think we have a much, and I'll thank the commission for continuing this item back in September 2018 and requesting more out of the applicant. I think we've given more, and we've given it willingly. We've created a better project than you saw back then, and I think it's a good project. I think it'll be a benefit to the area, benefit to the traveling public, and I would urge that you approve it tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And staff, do you have any comments for the record?
Excuse me, commissioners.
I'm sorry.
There was one fact that is been presented here tonight that is not correct.
I'm sorry, sir. We're on to something else now. My apologies.
Okay, well, sales tax is not collectible on self-service car wash. There is no sales tax revenue to be generated from this situation.
Thank you, sir. Staff, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Chair, the only item that I wanted to discuss was what the noise consultant just indicated as a significant environmental effect in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. He mentioned a 3 dB increase in noise. While I'm not a traffic noise consultant, what I have, I've reviewed many of them in my career, but that 3 dB is really where on the air, below that, it's really not perceptible to the human ear. That is not a significance criteria. Our significance criteria is when you exceed the noise, the community noise ordinance. And the information we have in the record here suggests that this will not exceed the noise ordinance, so there wouldn't be a significant effect. So I just want to make that one clarification, but that's it.
Great, thanks. And I'm going to close the public hearing unless somebody needs to ask a question to the applicant. So the public hearing is closed. Okay, so I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. I know Commissioner Kedding is going to want to talk. Do you want to go, Commissioner Kedding, or shall I defer to our in-person commissioners?
Defer.
Okay.
I'll come back.
Okay, perfect. Commissioner Rosine?
I visited the site, and I visited the site in Quail Hill as well. It is true that those doors are not operational right now, but I will say that the sound from that facility is significantly less than the facility across the street at the Chevron facility. So for what it's worth, it does appear to be a better facility. In regard to the ambient noise, we talked about cumulative. What I would say is being there in person on Rue Fontainebleau, it was interesting to me because the street noise is loud. And even though there was a lawnmower going about 100 feet away from me, they were about the same in terms of just ambient noise that you could hear from the lawnmower and the street as you were sitting there. I found that disturbing, but that's the condition that exists there today. So I just wanted to state that it's a loud location, and I think everybody agrees to that, that condition is loud. I heard tonight that the applicant would be willing to close down the facility if the doors weren't operating, and I was going to recommend that if we choose to move forward. In terms of the hours of operation, I'd be interested in talking to the applicant as to whether or not there'd be a consideration for changing the hours of operation. And then, I guess lastly, the location, and this is probably irrelevant to everybody else here, but the air and water and the vacuum location seem odd to me, being in front of a dedicated parking space. And the landscape there is helpful. It's not a desirable building, so the existing landscape is important, and I would propose that maybe those facilities be either moved somewhere else or deleted in their entirety. And I apologize, I did have one other thing. I might come up with another. I'd be interested in hearing from Mr. Holritz his consideration to the concept of adding the wall along the setback line and what kind of additional noise might be generated from that, because that is not addressed in the acoustical report. So I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Rosine. Any other commissioners? Oh, yeah, I have closed the public hearing, so I can reopen it for that, but let's, if any other commissioners up here, I'll go to Commissioner Ketting, and then.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure, Commissioner Elmore.
I have a question of the applicant. Does the applicant own or operate any other car washes?
I'll reopen the public hearing then to accommodate that, and then we can also have that sound study question that Commissioner Rosine presented.
Is it on?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Yes, he does own other car washes. Their company owns approximately 50 service stations. I think 20, Fred, did you say, have car washes? Oh, sorry, 9 have car washes currently.
And do they have a track record of building those or acquiring those?
Oh, Fred, why don't you just come up here? Might as well get it from the horse's mouth. Acquire them or build them? What went at the station?
All of them we've acquired.
So this will be the first new ground-up development for you?
Yes.
What are the ones that the other car washes that you have? What are the high traffic times? When do you have the most people in the queue throughout the day on a Monday through Friday and a Saturday, Sunday?
Morning commute and evening commute. So maybe 7 to 9 and 4 to 6 around.
7, 9, 4, 6. And then how many at your other locations do you find that you have people washing their cars at 9 or 10 o'clock at night?
It calms down a lot once the sun goes down, but it does happen.
And the morning and afternoon commute, that's a Monday through Friday. How about on Saturdays and Sundays? Is that the same?
We find that depends on location. Our business actually slows down on the weekend at this particular site. So Saturday and Sunday being the slowest day, Saturday being the second slowest day.
That's all the questions that I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Elmore. Commissioner Ketting, you're on.
You're on mute.
Can we do it from our end to unmute him? No, Commissioner Ketting. There you go. We got you.
There, I got it. I just can't. It's late. I'm falling asleep. All right. Let me do. I did one thing. I studied the 2018 conditions that the staff recommended, the applicant agreed to, although we couldn't make a finding, and I compared it to the 2021. Let me just tell you about the changes. They've had a year and almost 2 years, not quite, to study this. The only changes that were made between 2018 application and 2020 were 2 10-foot screen walls, one on the entrance, one on the exit. Number 2, hours of operation went from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. They agreed to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And third, offered to pay the HOA for additional bushes and shrubs and maybe a trees or two up on the slope. The 5-car queue was in the original one. The relocation of the vacuum station in front was in the original one. The roll-up doors were in the original application. I didn't see a whole lot of change. 10-foot screen walls, which I asked for that then. And the hours operation were asked by other people. That is it. Couldn't they come up with better land use analysis for this site to find a better spot for it? Or or changes to make it more believable, acceptable. That's something I wanted to make sure everybody heard. I found 12 car wash places in Newport Beach. I spent a lot of time driving around. Never got out because I'm quarantined. I read about trip generation issues from Mr. Mosier in 2018 that the staff didn't discuss because of the queue and more reason to draw cars to that site. And one thing that really disturbs me is condition 29 in the staff report that basically states they have to use recycled water unless it's, they can't do it financially, it doesn't make sense. Why would we even write that in a condition? It's on page 31 if you're following me in your staff reports. It says, assuming it is feasible. Why would we even put that in there? I could go down the list of the comments people made. We're pretty articulate. I don't see this as a necessity. We have enough in town. There's one across the street. We may lose the one at Fashion Island, so okay, may take a few years. I do agree with Mr. Rosine, the vacuum location is kind of strange. It's right in front of parking stalls going in. If you've ever used one of these, there's usually one or two people waiting to blow the water off that the car wash didn't dry. It took more than 7 minutes to go through that car wash in Irvine, trust me. And all the sound issues. I thought, I just feel it's inappropriate, wrong location, unnecessary, and a stretch at this point. We can do better.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Keding. The only thing I had to add was, I think Commissioner Rosine said it too, I mean, there is no condition to maintain those doors. So the doors, if they were to fail, if the staff there wasn't monitoring the doors being closed, who's to say that they're operating with those doors closed? So I think we need to have a strong condition in there that does guarantee those doors closed, and that if they're open and there's a code enforcement check, they're going to get cited for that. So that should shut down their operations, and that's not stated at all in the conditions. So I definitely think that should be something. And then I did have a question for staff on the hydrogen station setbacks. Were those just granted? Are those the same setbacks that they're seeking here, or are there setbacks on that site that are greater than? And that might be a hard question because I'm just throwing it out there, but I actually own a hydrogen car, and I am interested in finding hydrogen stations, which are very few and far in between. And that site is very interesting to me because it pulls up on my list of sites that are available, and it says that it's coming online in summer of 2021. So at some point there will be a hydrogen station there. It's just a matter of feasibility, and I'm not sure if that was granted extra permission to be there because of its being a state-run part of a system that they're trying to incorporate for fossil fuel emissions to reductions. So I didn't measure that when I was out at the site, but I'm just curious on the setbacks if that is the same as what's being proposed here or if they're greater.
Mr. Chair, I can answer the question on the setbacks. The service station guidelines or the service station regulations have different setbacks for different features. So car washes have to have a 30-foot setback to public streets, whereas other facilities do not.
Gotcha.
So it's just, there's a difference there in the code.
And then who granted the permission for the hydrogen station? Was that done as a state thing, or was that done by a council, or was that done by, do you remember the approval for that?
Yeah, that was done by staff. We found that addition to that facility didn't contradict any of the existing conditions or that existing site, and so that was done by staff administratively.
Yeah, as a patron of hydrogen fuel, I can attest that it's going to be a lot louder than this car wash will ever be when that's operational. So just a fair warning to those here that you'll have some other noise issues at that time. So All right, let's throw this up there for
I
a
believe the
motion
public
to-
hearing is still open, just.
Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
yeah,
I am sorry. That is, we will close the public hearing again and bring it back for the full commission to discuss or.
Give the applicant's acoustical engineer the opportunity to respond to the question in regard to the.
Yeah. Okay,
effect.
I'll reopen that. I'm not sure if that was somewhat addressed in his comments, but yes, please come back up. Sorry, Commissioner Rosine.
Thank you, Commissioners. In response to the question about the extent of that noise wall, and some people call it a 10-foot wall, and some people are saying 16. It should be made clear that it's 16 feet high and 10 feet long. I think most people know that, but there's been a little confusion. Certainly that wall could be extended further to the left and right of the car wash tunnel, and that would provide some additional noise reduction. You know, it's not something I can calculate off the top of my head, how much additional. It might be a couple dB, would be a good guess. In regards to why that wasn't analyzed, I would have to say that's because the last time this project was submitted, we were already below the city's noise standards, and the focus of this new noise study was to provide additional mitigation beyond what was already there, even though what was already there was adequate.
Yeah, he's Commissioner Rosine to ask another question.
Mr. Holritz, I want to restate my question, and I apologize if I wasn't clear, but the addition of a wall along that entire edge, which is 70 feet long, and the right turn lane, or the free right, creates a tunnel that may potentially provide the opportunity for sound to bounce off of the facility up towards.
I understand. And the possibility of an echo magnifying the noise.
Just like we're hearing right now. So I guess
okay,
the question is that.
So that's a good concern. Noise will bounce off of a wall. You cannot get a very significant increase in a noise level due to that kind of reflection unless you work really hard at it. To wit, you probably need to build a parabolic wall, and the noise increase would basically happen where the focus of that parabola is. A flat wall will create echo, but not an increase in sound that's measurable. But to minimize that, we've used split face block, and we recommended that that wall be covered with landscaping, which is somewhat absorbent and would help to prevent that. Even if the noise levels went up 2 or 3 dB, you're still well within the city standards.
So insignificant.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I will close the public hearing again and bring it back to the commission for echoing purposes. There a pleasure of any commissioners to make a motion. Commissioner Klaustermeyer.
I won't make a motion, but I'll make a comment. I think the concern here is noise, and I don't see any evidence in the acoustical report that the car wash is adding significant ambient noise out here. I think that is already in place from the traffic and from probably the flight path with planes flying above. I wasn't here when the previous application came before the commission, but it does seem to me that they have addressed some concerns and put some mitigation measures in place. I'll leave it at that for further discussion.
Perfect, thank you, Commissioner. Anyone want to put a motion together here, or?
The chair, this is Commissioner Ketting.
Yes.
Nobody seems to be focusing on my biggest hot button here is that 15-foot setback, a 50% reduction in the 30-foot required rear yard, side yard, call it what you want, setback. This leads me to believe the site is not appropriate for this use at this location, and it's only going to be exacerbated by all the other elements we've heard about, noise and fumes and the doors that may or may not work. which we've witnessed, many of us. And I don't think it just doesn't make sense at this location. We're cramming too much on this site. That's why I asked the early question, is the hydrogen deal, maybe that'll go away and maybe they could put it over there and get it out of the way, but apparently not. So I would recommend a denial of this as it's currently designed, and I can't make the findings, in my opinion. I don't know where the other commissioners stand on this.
You want to make that as a motion, or?
I made it, I will gladly make it as a motion to deny the application.
Okay.
PA 2016-093 for a general plan amendment and conditional use permit.
And asking for a second on that. Motion dies for a lack of second.
Okay.
Waiting on a Commissioner Klostermeyer.
Could we hear again from staff about the setback?
Certainly, the service station regulations require a 30-foot setback to public streets and for car washes. There are different setbacks for other structures. And so the applicant is requesting a 15-foot reduction. The review authority, the decision maker, in this case the Planning Commission, again, there's also a general plan amendment that comes with this. So at the end of the day, it would go to the City Council. So the review authority can actually reduce those setbacks with the findings contained in the resolution. It's not a variance, and so the findings that are in the resolution, if they're not in evidence to the Commission, then I would recommend that you not take that action.
I sense a little trepidation by the Commission to fully go into this. Obviously, that there was not a second for Commissioner Kettings to outright deny, but does the Commission wish to adjust some of the concerns as far as hours of operation, vacuum, location? Commissioner Rosine, it sounded like adding a little additional wall is not really going to help, but is that something? I want to try to get us to. We obviously have a community that's pretty upset. We should be able to listen to that, but I can sense that I think there's support for this, but maybe some adjustments could be made. And Commissioner Elmore.
Yeah, to piggyback on your point, I would feel more comfortable about approving this if we were to again alter the hours of operation. It doesn't sound like the car wash times are of high traffic after 8 o'clock per the applicant, so from 7 to 8. I'd feel more comfortable if there was a condition of approval for way signage for the queuing, and staff worked with the applicant to come up with a reasonable way signage program. And I'd feel more comfortable if there was a conditional, if there was a condition of approval for the doors to be operational and working. If they're not operational and working, that city finds out about it, reported that car washes loses its license.
All right, and was there any discussion on the vacuuming system? I know that was, somebody brought that up. Was that Commissioner Rosine?
Yeah, I could support a motion that if those two facilities were removed in addition to Commissioner Elmore's comments.
Okay, let me, I guess, open it back up, the hearing, to ask the applicant if he is okay with those. Is that the process that I need to do? All right.
Yes.
Councilman, you're back up.
Can we go through it? Can we go through them one at a time?
Yeah. So the changes were the hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. There would be signage for queuing for the waiting, so that there was no overspill onto Jamboree. The doors must be conditioned to be closed during the operation at all times, and if that doesn't happen, obviously code enforcement will cite that, but the doors are broken, they must shut down operations. So I think staff will come up with the appropriate language that will cover what the commission's looking for. And then the removal of the vacuums and system there in the front parking stalls, that to be removed.
Well, okay, so taking them in order, I would need to confer with my client about the hours, if you could give me a minute or two
Sure.
to do that.
Sure.
But as far as the extra signage, I don't believe that that'll be an issue. I've already said that we would agree to the condition that the doors must be operable for the station to be the car wash to be open. And then the last one, are you saying no vacuum at all, or just to relocate it somewhere else?
I think the removal probably is kind of what I'm sensing, and I can bring it back to the commission if that is something that you would agree on, or if that's something we further want to discuss.
Okay, well,
Commissioner Rosine, I know that was an area we just.
I just don't see where there would be an applicable location where you get the sound attenuation effect that the applicant's trying to
Yeah.
obtain by putting it in that location.
Yeah, I think we want to make sure that there's water and air for tires. That I think is probably required for a service station, but the vacuuming I don't think is something that has to be. So I think the odd location of once you exit, where a customer is going to go to figure out where to go to vacuuming, being in the spots that people park to go into the mini mart, I think that seems to be some areas of concern. So.
Okay, well, if you just give me a couple minutes,
Sure.
so I can confer with him, I'll be right back. Thank you.
Chairman, Mr. Keddick, I think I heard Mr. Rosine say an extended wall along the perimeter.
I think that was if there was a significant noise reduction, but I think the sound person said that wouldn't.
He said couldn't figure it out standing there. That's what he said, which surprised me, but it's at least a visual effect. At least it's got to break down some of that noise or idling and the car's emissions and things, but I'll wait to hear all the conditions.
Lou, I'm back.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I've discussed it with my client. He's willing to, we think it's a mistake because many of the customers of the car wash, would like to vacuum their car after they're done. It's not the optimal situation to not have it, but he's willing to give it up. We do request, though, instead of 8 p.m. closing, to make it at least 8:30, especially in the summertime. It's still light out. There's still people that are, traveling around and want to get their car washed. That's still an hour and a half off of what we're requesting. And I might add that the car wash across the street has hours from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we're not asking for any more than that. So we're already giving up some. So we would offer that as maybe a compromise.
Okay, I think the reality is where our votes are, though, Councilman. You probably would understand that. So let me throw it back to the commission. Do you agree to? Do we like the 8:30 time frame, or is that supportive, or shall I throw a motion out there and see what happens and do an 8:30 time frame? Okay, let's go with a motion to approve with those adjustments that we discussed. So 7 a.m. to 8:30, signage for waiting, condition for the doors that must be closed at all times. And staff, do you want to read that condition to us, or is that something you could do administratively? That
I can take a crack at reading it, but we might want to wordsmith this when we bring back the final resolution.
Yeah, and this does come to the council, so this will be heard again, and all of your time will be on this project again.
Absolutely, but we would add this probably to condition number 5, something to the effect that the automated doors shall be fully closed during the entire washing and drying cycle. The car wash shall not be operated without operational doors, something along those lines.
Okay, great. And then the last one is the vacuuming system will be removed from the project completely.
Yeah, that would actually be pretty simple. Condition number 6 deals with the vacuuming. It talks about one vacuuming station permitted at a particular location. We would just remove that, replace it with, no vacuuming, if you will, or it shall be prohibited.
Okay. All right, so that motion's on the table. Does everyone understand? Can I go for a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, great. And I will call for a vote.
Discussion on the motion and second.
Sure. Commissioner Keddy.
Very surprised. We heard from 16 homeowners adjacent to the site who probably represented 60 or more people who couldn't make it in all their homeowners associations. And they're very concerned about this. They're very concerned about all the noise, the environmental issues, the values of their properties, the operation of this mini car wash with no employees and no taxes to the city. I cannot believe we're going to consider something that's been shoehorned in at this site with a 50% variance on setback, or on the worst side of the property. I'm just sorry that we're not listening to the community in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'll call for the vote. Commissioner Rosine. Commissioner Kleiman.
Aye.
Commissioner Klostermeyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Elmore.
Aye.
Commissioner Lowry.
Aye.
Commissioner Keddy.
No.
And I am a yes. And staff and commissioner items, say item number 6, motion to reconsideration. You guys at 10:45 want to reconsider your support of me as chair. Seeing none, reports by community development director or requests for matters which planning commissioner would like to be placed on a future agenda. Director report, you want to skim through something?
Mr. Chair, I'll skim through quickly. We do have our second Housing Element Update Advisory Committee meeting July 15th here in the council chambers at 6 p.m. So we're going to be digging a little deeper into the Housing Element Update. So we do have 3 items on the Planning Commission's agenda for July 23rd, short-term lodging, a small subdivision, and some changes to the industrial zone. So look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.
Great, thank you, Mr. Campbell. Item number 8, or any commissioner requests for future agenda items? All right, item number 8, requests for excused absences. Any of those? All right, we are adjourned.